Okay, we're now back to open session. For 2.3, Ed Moran, Deputy General Counsel, will provide the closed session report.
Chair, there is no report from the closed session.
Thank you so much. That moves us on to item 3, awards and commendation. Tonight, we are recognizing employees and supervisor of the second quarter. 2 of our honorees were not able to make it tonight, and Sonia Morrison, Chief People Officer, will introduce our honorees.
Good evening, Chair and board members. My name is Sonia Morrison, Chief People Officer for VTA. It is my absolute honor and privilege to talk about and announce the employees and supervisor of the quarter for the second quarter of 2026. So, Kao Se Chow, a payroll specialist, is the administration award winning for the second quarter. Cal was nominated by operations employees for consistently going above and beyond to assist employees, helping staff across departments navigate payroll questions and administrative processes with patience and care. Recently, he provided exceptional support and service to a soon-to-be retired frontline employee with more than 30 years of service who was having trouble completing her retirement paperwork. Cal guided her through the process from start to finish, taking the time to answer every question and address each concern. His clear explanations and thoughtful approach eased her worries and ensured she felt confident and supported during this important transition. Cal's willingness to support colleagues across the organization reflects his strong commitment to service and collaboration, making him highly deserving of this recognition. Congratulations, Cal, Administration Employee of the second quarter of 2026. Maricela Alcaraz, Transportation Division Supervisor, Light Rail, is the Supervisor Award winner of the second quarter. Maricela has distinguished herself as one of VTA's most dedicated and knowledgeable supervisors with an unparalleled understanding of the light rail system and a work ethic that sets a strong example for her peers. Her colleagues note that Maricela leads with both professionalism and compassion, consistently demonstrating sound judgment and a deep commitment to her team. She is known for fostering a supportive work environment and for being a trusted and approachable leader to her employees. Currently working at a class as a light rail superintendent, Maricela has stepped up to take on additional responsibilities, providing steady leadership and ensuring operations continue to run smoothly. Her proactive problem-solving, positive attitude, and dedication to excellence make her a true asset to the Guadalupe team. Highly respected by those she works with, Maricela exemplifies strong leadership and integrity in all aspects of her role. Congratulations, Maricela, Supervisor of the second quarter of 2026. We have Tanika Benton, Operations Control Center Dispatcher for the Guadalupe Division. She's not here tonight, but she's the Operations Award winner for the second quarter. And also Joseph Caliponi, Transit Mechanic at Shibuya, who's the Maintenance Award winner for the second quarter. Congratulations to them as well. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. That brings us to public comment for items not on the agenda. The law does not permit board action or extended discussion of an item not on the agenda except under special circumstances. So at this time, I'd like you, for those of you in the room, to fill out a blue speaker card if you'd like to speak, and for those of you on Zoom or on the phone, to either raise your virtual hand or press *9. We'll have up to 30 minutes allocated for public comment for items not on the agenda. And if we are unable to get to all of our comments in 30 minutes, we'll have time at the end. So with that, I'll start with our in-person blue comment cards. First, James Whiteman, followed by Cindy Bautista, followed by Akemi Flynn.
Yes, okay, yes, okay. Am I ready?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, on the news, I was hearing a thing on Clipper today that the thing might be fixed by August 30th. This thing has to be fixed, because when I was on the Clipper, all the people down customer service are having a hard time with it. Paul Prague, everybody that I know. And, yes, it's good we're gonna get this Clipper thing fixed by August 30th. And I saw, when I was on the light rail station on Monday, I saw somebody took a shit. That should be another thing that should be a probation order, or on VTA bus or light rail, somebody pisses or takes a shit. Yeah, and other things, you guys are doing a wonderful job. When March Madness came, my mom was at downtown. She said it was really busy down there for March Madness, so we had a team stay there.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, BTA Board, Chair Lopez, and board members. My name is Cindy Bautista. I'm the Pasos community organizer, Secret Hearts, and also a bus rider. I'll call them my special and expensive limousine because I've been riding them since 2003. We're urged to protect safety and well-being of BTA workers and riders, supporting the referral of directors Arena, Candelas, Camay, sell, and well before a policy to restrict the use of BTA-owned and BTA-controlled property for immigration enforcement activity, including but not limited to buses, light rail, cars, passengers, areas, and parking lots. This is important to me because my community, my family depends on BTA to get to work, doctor's appointments, and to do their errands, and their safety is a priority. We ask and urge you to schedule a special meeting soon to take action and make sure that our people's safety becomes a priority. BTA will benefit from early work leadership and can be assured this policy has solid legal standing and minimize risk. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Akemi, and that will be followed by Jeremy Barus, then JP, then Dilza Gonzalez.
Thank you. Kemi Flynn with IPEN, the Immigrant Protection and Empowerment Network. Just here again to support the referral presented by Directors Arenas, Lopez, Candelas, Camay, Sell, and Weinberg. And thank you very much for such a strong support for the protections that our community needs through prohibiting use of VTA-owned and operated properties from federal immigration enforcement, and also the important establishment of protocols, safe site protocols, for employees and for riders, and including workers in that process of establishing those protocols and the training. As we've shared, it's really urgent to have this policy and these protocols and this training in place ASAP. Our community is feeling under great threat, and we do have World Cup coming, where there'll be lots of ridership with VTA. So if we want to be sure that the action can move forward tonight and come back soon to get that protocol established, the policy adopted, and the training in place. Thank you.
Good evening, Jeremy Bruce, Director Policy and Organizing with Amigos de Guadalupe Center for Justice and Empowerment, and we are part of IPEN. We urge you to protect the safety and well-being of VTA workers and riders by supporting the referral from Directors Arenas, Candelas, Camay, Sell, and Weinberg. A good amount of our Amigos de Guadalupe clients seeking our services take VTA transportation to get to and from our office, and this referral would give them the safety and security to continue to use public transportation to their appointments and other daily activities. We urge the board to pass a strong policy that excludes federal immigration enforcement from using VTA property to execute their harmful family separation agenda. We must not let malicious federal agents use local government property to violate the constitutional rights and safety of our people. Our tax-funded property, public property, belongs to the people who live here, not the agents terrorizing them. So let's stand up for our immigrant community and pass the referral today. Thank you.
Thank you. JP, followed by Dilza, and then Tammy.
Good evening, João Paulo with Working Partnerships. In June, tourists, fans, sports fans from all around the world will be here in the Bay Area to watch the games during the World Cup. You have a diverse group of folks, and the risk of some kind of incident or some kind of politicized threat, as we saw in previous sporting events involving federal immigration, is high. So this board has very little time to take meaningful action right now to make sure that it has policies in place to protect everyone in our community, every transit rider, every transit worker. So I appreciate this referral, and we urge you to move forward with it quickly and to get these policies in place in time for the World Cup. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Gonzalez. I am part of Sacred Heart, and I have ride VTA since I was 7 years old. I am here to urge you to protect the safety and well-being of VTA workers and riders by supporting the referrals from Directors Arenas, Candelas, Kamei, Sell, and Weinberg for a policy to protect our communities. As you all know, there's a clear threat to our community of color. Right now, the DHS is able to racial profile our community members, and we have seen the harm this has caused in other states. They have even caused deaths. This is why we need to take a proactive step and ensure their safety by establishing safe site protocols and training for VTA employees ahead of FIFA World Cup beginning June 11, 2026. And it's not just for the FIFA, it's for the everyday communities that are riding the bus and VTA. Because of this, we're urging you to take action tonight to ensure the safety and trust of our communities and workers. Thank you.
Thank you. And after Tammy, we'll have Roberto Gonzalez and then June Zhao.
Good evening, board members. My name is Tammy Laredo Denota. I'm a 31-year employee of VTA, and I'm also the chapter chair for SEIU Local 521. I've been here lots of times, but I don't think any of those times are as important as this, as a lifelong resident of this county. I'm here to say thank you, Supervisor Reyes, for talk, but there was no action. Workers were sent out to the Super Bowl and they did not feel protected. The World Cup should not be that way. We need to make sure that everyone is not felt like ICE has an open invitation to come in and take our community members, and that workers feel like they can also participate. Thank you.
Hello, VTA Board Chair and Board members. My name is Roberto Gonzalez with Working Partnerships USA. We urge you to protect the safety and well-being of VTA workers and riders by supporting the referrals from Directors Arenas, Candelas, Kamei, Sell, and Weinberg. And not just for those visiting for the World Cup, but also for our small business community. As we know, two of the biggest depots that we have are on the east side, so East Ridge and the flea market, which are both heavily trafficked by mixed status families. And again, we just ask you to protect those families and those small businesses that are being affected already, and we don't want to see them be affected any more further. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is June Zhao. I'm a VTA employee and a member of SEIU 521, speaking on my own behalf. And I'm here to urge the board to support the referral to protect the safety and well-being of VTA workers and riders. I'm echoing a lot of what has already been shared tonight regarding the World Cup and the urgency, the necessity to take as strong precautions as possible to prepare our agency to be ready for any situation that may come up with immigration enforcement. So clearer protocols and training for VTA workers to be prepared for any situations, as well as doing whatever we can to restrict the use of VTA property for immigration enforcement. Just want to really echo that there are ambassadors that are coming from the employees, but also there are folks that are going out into the field for their actual jobs that may be at risk.
Thank you. Then we have Philip Nguyen, followed by Min.
Hello, board. My name is Philip. I am at the technology department in VTA, as well as an SEIU 521 steward. I also wanted to elevate what the community members have brought up before you, is to support the referral and to work in partnership with unions and impacted communities to get implementation of more safety protocols, organization-wide. Firstly, clearer and more intensive training for VTA workers, especially ahead of FIFA, because the feedback that we've had from ambassadors is that they felt very unsafe, very unprepared for the Super Bowl, and we ask that we have better training and preparation for the ambassadors, and to restrict the use of VTA property for immigration enforcement. We have to keep our community safe and our workers safe so that we can serve our community the best we can. So thank you. We ask that you act now. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Min with SEIU 521. I'm speaking on my own behalf, and I urge you to support this referral to protect the safety and well-being of VTA workers and riders. Transportation agencies, counties, and cities across California and the country are taking action to protect their employees and communities. We need VTA to do the same, and we are asking for two things to keep people safe. First, clear protocols and training for VTA workers, especially ahead of the 2026 World Cup, when pressure on the system will increase. Second, restrict the use of VTA property for immigration enforcement. We urge you to support this referral and to work in partnership with unions and impacted communities to get implementation right. Protecting workers is your responsibility. We ask you to act now. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else in the chambers wishing to speak? If not, we'll go to our online comments.
We have 8 hands raised over Zoom. Before we begin, I'd like to state for the record that we received written public comments that were submitted and are available on the online portal. We also received some written public comments after the cutoff time, and they will be posted and sent out tomorrow. We'll begin with Dominic Tressler, followed by Roland, and then Barney Smits. Dominic, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Hello, my name is Dominic Tressler, and today I will be speaking on behalf of Councilmember Peter Ortiz. I would like to start off my comments by thanking VTA for your continued partnership in supporting the small businesses along the Capitol Expressway corridor that have suffered through the impacts of the construction. However, at the same time, we are continuing to hear serious concerns from residents living around the corridor that need to be addressed with the same level of urgency. Construction is occurring throughout the night without consistent outreach to residents regarding these noise impacts. They are dealing with ongoing noise impacts with little to no mitigation tools, and many are unable to open their windows due to the conditions. With construction expected to continue into the summer, these impacts are only becoming more severe. There are also growing concerns about dust and air quality, raising real public health concerns. And importantly, there is no clear documented process for addressing property damage. That process needs to be developed and should not be left to VTA discretion. It should be standardized, transparent, and include a third-party assessment to ensure fairness and accountability.
Roland, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Good evening. I have to touch on two things, Lehigh Quarry and Sheridan. On Lehigh, I would like the county, VTA, and the city of Cupertino to initiate a study to establish a business case for the acquisition of the Lehigh permanent quarry in its current condition for parks and recreation, housing, and transportation purposes. With regard to Sheridan, Google has so far spent nearly $500 million in the Alviso area instead of downtown West. It is imperative that we address this by advancing a complete design and construction of all the transportation infrastructure in the Sheridan area so that developers and others can start delivering on Google's vision for downtown West. Thank you.
Next up is Barney Smits, followed by Samantha and then Lorena. Barney, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
My name is Barney Smits. I'm a licensed professional engineer with over 25 years experience as a BART engineer and fire life safety expert. So, why is it that only Director Jane and Director Burt seem to care about the reduction in safety, misinformation, mismanagement, and complete lack of transparency from VTA regarding the extensive problems with the BSV2 project? In December of 2018, the CPUC notified both VTA and BART, quote, that you can't pick and choose codes and standards. The CPUC clarified that if you upgrade to a current code, that you have to use all the current codes and standards. Last month, when BSV2 announced that they were going to change to the 2026 NFPA 130, I asked, when is the project going to upgrade to the 2025 California Building Code and the current BART facility standard? To make this change, they would need to rewrite the entire design criteria manual around the current standards. Please ask the project when the design criteria manual will be completed and approved by BART. Thank you.
Samantha, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready. Samantha, if you can hear me, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Hi, my name is Samantha, and I am speaking on behalf of the Patient Organizing Committee. I urge the board to support the proposal to restrict immigration enforcement on VTA-owned or VTA-controlled property and to establish clear safe site protocols and comprehensive employee training ahead of the FIFA World Cup. I speak as a patient organizer advocating for public health, safety, and accessible health care. Many patients I organize rely directly on VTA as their only way to reach medical care. Public transit is a necessity, not a convenience. Many cannot drive, and Uber or Lyft are simply unaffordable. If VTA is used for immigration purposes, patients will lose their only access to care. VTA routes stop directly in front of critical medical facilities. For example, Route 59 and the Orange Line serve Santa Clara Valley Medical Center on Bascom. When immigration enforcement occurs on public transportation, it creates fear. Patients are already delaying or avoiding appointments, miss preventative care, and live with untreated chronic conditions when they are tinted or unmarked enforcement vehicles. Allowing these activities on VTA will drastically increase these harmful consequences and place greater long-term strain on our community. Thank you.
Next up is Lorena, followed by Rocio and Carmen. Lorena, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
¿Me escuchan? ¿Me escuchan?
Sí, ahorita viene alguien para traducir.
Buenas noches. Cuando está lista puede hablar.
¿Ya? ¿Sí me escuchan?
Sí, le escuchamos muy bien.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Lorena y soy una jinete frecuente de VTA. Insisto a la Junta a respaldar la propuesta para restringir el uso de las propiedades del VTA para actividades relacionadas con la inmigración. Como inmigrante siento mucho temor al viajar en autobús hacia y desde el trabajo. Esta medida nos mantendría a salvo, nos brindaría tranquilidad y nos demostraría que VTA está tomando una postura en defensa de los inmigrantes. En el condado de Santa Clara, gracias por su consideración. Espero que esta noche tomen una postura firme al respeto. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Ahora le voy a traducir a la mesa directiva. She is a frequent VTA rider. Use of the VTA is something that's important for her in her life. As an immigrant, she is also concerned traveling on VTA to feel safe. She also wants to recognize VTA taking a position of this, a strong position, much like others have taken it, to protect them from immigration control ICE, and wants to make sure that we follow through and continue with this process. Muchas gracias. Le traté de traducir todo lo que puse. Muchas gracias.
Next speaker is Rocio, followed by Carmen. Rocio, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Señora Rocío, cuando tiene tiempo puede hablar.
Good evening. My name is Rocio. I'm one of the homeowners who's affected by the EBRC project. Currently, claims are being denied because the people making the decisions are VTA workers who have a vested interest. I urge you to hire a third-party inspector who does not have a vested interest to go out and inspect the homes of those affected to ensure that the structural and foundation of our homes has not been affected. I had newly installed drywall that began to crack when the vibration started, and I have heard the same thing from other homeowners around the area. So I strongly urge you that you please hire a third-party inspector. Thank you.
Next up is Carmen, followed by Tan, and then Maria. Carmen, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Hola, presidente de la Junta, señor López, y miembros de la Junta Directiva de VTA. Mi nombre es Carmen y soy directora de Organización Comunitaria con Latinas contra Cáncer y también represento al Comité de Pacientes. Estoy aquí para pedirles que protejan la seguridad y el bienestar de los trabajadores y los pasajeros. Por favor, restrinjan el uso de las propiedades del VTA para actividades de control migratorio y que establezca protocolos de sitios seguros y capacitación obligatoria para los empleados antes de la Copa Mundial de la FIFA en junio de 2026. Esta política es esencial para la salud pública y la equidad. Muchos pacientes dependen del transporte del VTA porque es la única forma accesible y asequible de llegar a las clínicas y hospitales, especialmente las personas con discapacidad. Para muchos no hay alternativas. No manejan, no tienen vehículo o el transporte privado es demasiado caro. Cualquier percepción de riesgo o intimidación puede impedirles recibir atención médica continua. Cuando el transporte público se usa para control migratorio, se genera miedo y desconfianza, y los pacientes dejan de asistir a sus citas. con consecuencias graves para la salud. VTA debe de ser un servicio público seguro, no un espacio de vigilancia. Por favor, aprueben esta propuesta antes de la Copa Mundial. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Voy a intentar traducirle lo que pude. She is a director of one of the organizations that works with immigrant rights. She wants to make sure that we don't allow immigration to come onto our property. This is not only for immigrants, but it's also for employee protection. It's important to have the public feel safe. One of the things it's critical is that a lot of immigrants are using this bus and our transit as the only means to get to hospitals and clinics. Without this, they have no other alternatives with no cars and no other means to get to these hospitals. With the fear of having immigration, there is the concern of them missing their appointments and not going there. We need to make sure that VTA is secure and safe for everybody involved. Muchas gracias.
Next up is Tan, followed by Maria and KH. Tan, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready. Tan, if you can hear me, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready. Tan, if you can hear me, I will return to you. Next up is Maria, followed by KH. Maria.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, this is Tan. Loud and clear.
Hi, my name is Tan Nguyen, Vice President of the Castell Neighborhood Association. I am speaking on behalf of our community members. The EBRC project has created safety issues in our neighborhood from traffic, speeding, construction dust, overnight construction noise, as well as the damages to property, not just homes, but vehicles as well. And so it's not just a safety issue, it's also impacting our health. So my ask is that if VTA can collaborate with us to find a solution to these problems, we greatly appreciate it.
Next up is Maria, followed by KH. Maria, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Maria Reyes. I am from Pastel Community. I am one of the persons that has had my home damaged. The person that assessed my home is a VTA employee. We are asking to have independent contractors come and evaluate. I could not get my foundation examined because VTA said it wasn't under their jurisdiction. So somebody has to be held accountable. It cannot be that VTA comes and destroys our homes, destroys our businesses. We have put up with so much of the noise, the traffic, and this is not fair to the community. So I'm asking for VTA to take a really serious look as to what is happening in our community. And I would like to thank Peter Ortiz for being a leader in this. Thank you very much.
Our last speaker on Zoom is KH. KH, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready. KH, if you...
My name is Catherine Hedges, and I organize with Surge of Santa Clara County, and I'm also a VTA writer, been one since I moved to the county in 2010. And I really worry about immigrants and other people of color not having access to public transit because our most vulnerable communities are the ones that depend the most on transit. And we know that ICE doesn't care if you're a citizen or an asylum seeker or undocumented. They're just going to grab you and throw you in a camp and ask questions later. So VTA needs to follow the lead of other local governments and prohibit ICE and other DHS agencies from operating on their property and property under their control. People shouldn't be afraid they're going to get picked up by ICE on their way to work or the clinic or whatever. Thank you.
We have one more speaker over Zoom. Lucila, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, Board of Directors. My name is Lucila, and I'm here with Silicon Valley Rising. I just want to continue to urge you to support the referral in front of you to make sure that not only riders but workers feel protected especially because the World Cup is coming and we know that the danger of ICE immigration enforcement is here, and we should not wait until the last minute to confront that danger in there head on. And I want to stress that it's really critical for us to take action before the World Cup. So if you can pass the referral today and come back with the suggested policy as soon as possible so that those practices and those conversations with the unions can happen before the World Cup, that would be ideal. Thank you. Bye.
And there are no more hands raised over Zoom.
Thank you so much. Again, anyone in here who would like to speak? Great. If not, we'll close public comment. And I do want to note, although referrals are under 9.1, and the referral is in board members' packets, I do want to note that referrals are governed by our board adopted policy. So this referral does move forward because of the number of board members who signed onto it. So I just want members of the public to be aware of that. But thank you for speaking. And as I said, it'll be also taken up under 9.1. With that, we have no public hearings today, and we'll go on to reports. 6.1 is our Citizens Advisory Committee by Tracy Casoron.
Good evening, Chairperson Lopez, General Manager Carolyn Gannott, and members of the board. The CAC and the Citizens Watchdog Committee met on March 11th, and we received presentations from staff on several topics. First, we were pleased to have General Manager and CEO Carolyn M. Gannott provide a report on, first, a recap of the Path to the Future Board Workshop, which was on February 27th, 2026, as well as, second, the Super Bowl 60 Transit Operations Debrief. The committee also determined that June 10th, 2026 at 4 p.m. is the date, time, and location to conduct the 2000 Measure A Citizens Watchdog Committee public hearing. And this will cover the fiscal year 2025 Measure A expenditures, as well as the results of the annual compliance audit of Measure A revenues and expenditures. We also approved the public hearing notice and publication strategy for the 2000 Measure A Citizens Watchdog Committee public hearing. And finally, we heard from the VTA Strategy and Transformation Director, Sam Sargent, who provided a presentation about the draft local investment plan for Senate Bill 63. Members of the committee expressed both support for transit funding as well as questions over key issues, including, first of all, clarification on local versus regional funding distribution and ensuring Santa Clara County gets its fair share. Second, need for clear public communication. Thirdly, transportation as a regional issue, as well as, fourth, opportunities for regional fair coordination. And finally, I'm happy to say we almost have a full CAC-CWC board. We still have a couple of openings, so please encourage the public to join us by visiting vta.org/apply-CAC to apply. And our next meeting will be held next week, Wednesday, April 8th at 4 p.m. at the VTA headquarters, 3331 North 1st Street, and virtually over Zoom. Thank you. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much. Not seeing any questions, but I appreciate you coming. Thank you. For 6.1B, the Policy Advisory Committee Chair Report is posted on the agenda portal and available at the public table. And the written report for 6.1C is in the packet. There's no report for 6.1D. The written report for 6.1E is posted on the agenda portal and available at the public table. I'll now open public comment for any comments under reports under 6.1.
We have one hand raised over Zoom. Roland, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Thank you. I would like to speak to 61E, which is the report on the BARC oversight. Bring to your attention that this report bears little resemblance to the minutes which are posted on the same packet under item 7.14.6. Specifically, the request for decision for a framework for station prioritization and a phased delivery scenario. The discussion was simple and to the point. Specifically, the integrated Dirigen station only station in phase one. At which point it becomes unclear why we should be wasting potentially up to $3 billion on a tunnel between Santa Clara and Dirigen without any funding for a rail yard or a station in Santa Clara. Thank you.
And there are no more hands raised.
Thank you. That takes us to 6.2, the General Manager CEO's report. Carolyn?
Good evening. I'm going to begin with a brief update on the progress of the EBRC Business Micro Grant Program that we discussed last month. We've made great strides since the program's inception since last month, and I've asked Manolo Gonzalez-Estate and Kathleen Podrosky from our Government Affairs and Community Outreach Departments to provide additional details. And then after their report, I'm going to just cover a few other topics. Catherine and Manolo?
Yeah, I got to figure, oh, it's on. Well, thank you very much, board members. On your slide here, you have good news. Thank you to all of you, particularly Sylvia Arenas, Supervisor Arenas, Domingo Candelas, and San Jose Council Member Peter Ortiz, and Supervisor Betty Dong from the Policy Advisory Board. Made sure that we did something to help out the small businesses. What we did is created last meeting, you were all there, with a two-tier system to help businesses with economic assistance. The first one you could see here, the first bullet, we've been able to establish the microgrant program and also start to distribute checks. One of the big goals was to get the money into the small businesses as soon as possible. And we're happy to say that we'll be able to do that. We've had 17 small businesses apply for the Tier 1 and Tier 1B. Those are the $5,000 and $3,500. And we've been able to process the checks within our departments as quickly as possible. We have already 5 applications for the Tier 2, which is where they need to demonstrate losses. And we're happy to say that so far we distributed $69,000 in microgrants. And we have a deadline of next year, so people that are doing their taxes now, their 2025 taxes, we're working with them. One thing I want to make sure is also to thank a number of people. Thanks to the small businesses for patience, and also some of the VTA staff from risk management, our finance for being able to process these things quickly, as well as the staff from Supervisor Arenas, Councilmember Candelas, and Peter Ortiz. Their staff was out there with us multiple days talking to the businesses and helping us out there. I'm also happy to say that I've, from the Community Outreach Department, was handed over 2 people to help out. David Lovato, who's in the audience, and I'm going to embarrass him and make him stand up. And Angel Madera. Where's Angel? They've been out there with me, with the staff, all of us talking to the businesses, helping them, assist them in this process, and none of that would have been possible without all of them. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, see if there's any questions for them before I come up.
I just want to say thank you for working very quickly and bringing it all together. I know it's not perfect. You know, there's probably little things here and there that have to be tweaked, but a quick thank you because it, happened very, very quickly.
Yeah, I also just want to express my gratitude to staff for all the hard work on this, not just with this project, but throughout the entirety of this capital project. Thank you.
Okay.
I kind of feel like I have to say something. No, I'm kidding. No, Manolo, thank you. You and I talked a few times a week on this, and obviously, look, the disruptions we heard in public comment, a few folks are still have serious concerns, but I think this shows goodwill and us putting our best foot forward from when we had the initial conversation up here on the dais to literally the following day going out there with the application in both Spanish and English, and so that does not dawn on me, and I really certainly appreciate the work of our staff, and there's still much work to do, but I'm really happy with this. Thank you.
Thanks, and I do want to thank the staff, everybody who Manolo mentioned. Kathleen, Patrice Smith isn't here. She helped really the next day. Manolo, Patrice sort of led the group and tried to get everything organized, got the cards out and everything. So I really want to thank everybody for working very diligently to get the program up and running. So thank you so much, Manolo and Kathleen, for being here tonight, as well as David and Angel. And actually, I really want to thank the council members, staffs, and Supervisor Arenas' staff for being there and actually helping as well, because we really met with every single business that was out there, helped them fill out the applications that they need help explain the program to them, and met with them personally so that we were able to move that forward. So I really appreciate that. There was a lot of diligent work on this program that helped move it forward. So I appreciate all that effort. So thank you. We can go to the next slide. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the federal funding opportunities that are here for FIFA right now. VTA is pursuing a couple. The first is the FIFA World Cup Safety and Security Grant Program. This program is designed to fund security, law enforcement, and emergency management demands associated with the FIFA World Cup events, and we'll be applying for this funding through the Bay Area Hosts Committee. There's $625 million nationally. That is not what is available through the Bay Area, roughly about 50-some million dollars, and we will be applying. We're going to be asking for 10, and we hope that we will get roughly around 10 million, but we will see. I know Santa Clara will be going after some, San Jose, Santa Clara County, as well as everybody else in the Bay Area, so we will see what we can get, but we will be putting our application in for that as well. The second program is the Federal Transit Administration has programmed 8.8 million out of 100 million nationwide for the San Jose urbanized area for transit operations to support FIFA. MTC is the recipient for that. They'll be working with the Bay Area transit operators to determine how these funds will be divided among the operators. They're supposed to be doing that in consultation. Since VTA is the primary transit agency for these games and definitely absorbs a heavier cost burden for transit operations on each game day that we have 6 games. VTA is requesting an allocation of at least 70% of the $8.8 million of the UZA funds. I've sent a letter to MTC requesting that. I know each of our commissioners were CC'd on that as well as the chair. And I will continue, and I hope others will continue to strongly advocate that we receive a minimum of the 70% of that $8.8 million. So we will continue to have conversations with MTC. They're going to be working with the Transit Finance Committee at the region, but I do believe since every game is, when we watched the Super Bowl, we had almost, we had every one of our trains out working, and we had a huge amount of buses out, much higher above our normal operations than we usually have. So we have a lot of service out there where, some of the other operators were still running regular Sunday service, and they're able to do that and carry what's needed, but we're not able to do that. Now, will that be true at 9 o'clock at night or midnight on a weekday? I don't know. But still, we will still be carrying as much service as we can at the top of our game. And so every single game that we have, we will be like that. So those will be things that we're going to want some reimbursement for as much as we can. So I will be actually advocating for that as well. I'll go to the next slide. This is regarding the California Transportation Commission's approval of $100 million for our BART Silicon Valley 2 project. I was very happy that we were able to receive those dollars at an action that they took at their March meeting. This action helps keep the project moving and allows VTA to utilize these funds for construction activities this year. So additionally, the CTC is actually going to hold their May meeting in San Jose, and with the commissioners in town, we will be providing them a tour of the BART Silicon Valley project to better familiarize the commissioners with the project's progress. That'll be something that since they're giving us quite a bit of money towards the project, we hope that they're able to make this tour. Next store is, we actually have been given quite a bit of tours. In March, I was pleased to welcome several key FTA leaders. Actually, it was March 20th we were able to do the tour with the FTA Associate Administrator for Regional Services, Jamie Pfister, who toured the West Portal site. Earlier that month, we were able to give a tour to Ray Tellis, as well as who is the FTA Regional 9 administrator, and the deputy administrator, Amy Cheng-Xian. She actually came with Jamie as well for that tour of the facility. This was a great opportunity for the Federal Transit Administration to actually see what has been done on the project and see it in action, so it was really well. The picture to the left is actually the team, the project management oversight consultants, ourselves, VTA team, and the FTA team all there. For that tour that day as they came down for a meeting. And we will now start FTA quarterly meetings with the Federal Transit Administration Region 9 Director. So let's go to the next slide. And I want to just mention the Federal Transit Administration executive director, Matt Welby's retired. The executive director is the highest ranking career level employee at the Federal Transit Administration. And Matt has been announced his retirement earlier, and he retired this March. What day was it? I know Alka can mention it when he comes up for the government affairs report. He's been a longtime friend, actually, of course, to the transit industry, but he's been also a VTA. He's been a champion for many of our successful grants and projects in Santa Clara County. On a personal note, I will definitely miss him. I've had many conversations with him over the years on our project. He's been instrumental in helping us move from the expedited project delivery program to the New Starts program, and being able to move the project into getting the funding, the $5 billion funding. So I really cannot say, he's just been really consummate professional in everything he does, and we really, really, truly are going to miss him. I think Jamie Pfister, who came out to visit, actually had given me a call, and I think she is going to be acting in his place at this time until they choose to replace him and go out. So I want to congratulate him on his retirement, and I know I'll be saying a few words at the California Transportation Commission meeting for him, as well as some of the other general managers. But I just want to wish him success publicly. He's been a great friend of VTA's and has done great things for us over all the years. So just wanted to recognize him. Just like to note one last couple things is that we have the Affordable Housing Progress Report, annual report on your desk, and that allows you to know what through 2025, where we're moving. And I have my general manager CEO report for this month, and our preliminary ridership data and the safety security data for March are in your supplemental packets. So with that, I'd like to move on to the federal advocacy update. I'm going to ask Beverly Green, our Chief Government Affairs Officer, to come up and introduce our speakers, as we have our federal lobbyists here to actually give you an update on our federal program and what's going on in Washington. Well, we can't tell you everything that's going on in Washington. We don't know everything that's going on in Washington.
Good evening, Board of Directors. I'm Beverly Green, Chief Government Affairs Officer. And once a year, near the beginning of the year, we ask that our federal lobbyists come to us and present to the Board of Directors an update on what's going on in Washington, D.C. So I'm joined here by Alka Maher-Piersma of Cardinal Infrastructure and Steve Palmer of Van Scoyoc Associates, along with Aaron Quigley, Senior Policy Analyst. Our advocates in Washington, D.C. will talk about appropriations, the budget, surface transportation reauthorization, and priorities for the BART to Silicon Valley Phase 2 project.
Let me start, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. What we'd like to do is just provide a little bit of sense of what's going on in Washington on our transportation issues and what we are doing on behalf of VTA in terms of advocating for your priorities. I'll start first talking about the budget and the appropriations process and turn it over to Alka. He'll talk a little bit more about the BSV project. So after months of delay and a very prolonged government shutdown, this year's appropriations bills were finally signed into law in January. The bill, for all of the consternation about what it might include, it was relatively good for VTA. Along with the other transit agencies, it was providing an increase in overall formula funding for this year over the last year. And within the Capital Investment Grant Program, which is the key part of funding for the BSV project, there was $100 million that was set aside for this project. And I think while that money can't be accessed right away, it does signal that Congress is supporting the project. They understand the work that's being done and the innovative process that is being undertaken to try to develop the project. And then, as the general manager talked about, there was $100 million set aside to help transit agencies to provide the increased ridership, to cover the cost of the increased ridership during the upcoming FIFA World Cup games. Looking ahead to this coming fiscal year, the president's budget is actually going to be sent to the Congress tomorrow, as it turns out. So we'll see some of the priorities that President Trump has in his budget, transportation budget. It's not going to be a good year overall. It's going to be a very challenging year because The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act expires, the 5-year bill, bipartisan bill expires on September 30th of this year. Looking at the coming fiscal year, that means there'll be probably reductions in the overall competitive grant programs, but the formula programs, I think Congress will fully fund, and we're advocating for increases in those programs as well. We're also taking advantage of the fact that Congress likes to specify funding for individual projects through basically earmarks. The House and the Senate call them different things, so I'll just shorthand and call it that. And as you can see on the slide, we have several projects. We've been talking to the delegation about asking them to consider submitting them to the appropriations committees so that in those final bills, they'll include specified funding for VTA projects. They're not large projects, but it's a way we can, again, signal support from the federal government for some of the priorities of VTAs. With that, I'll turn it over to Alka.
The surface transportation reauthorization, every 5 years, Congress passes a reauthorization bill for surface transportation. The current bill, IIJA, expires in September this year. Congress has, for the last year or so, been developing and working on a new authorization. I will say that it's likely not going to be done this year. They'll almost certainly extend in September for at least 6 to 9 months, and they'll start again next year. But in that, VTA has been seeking a few key things. First is crime prevention and security formula funding. In current transit law, big transit agencies like VTA cannot use federal dollars for operating costs. That's built into current law. This is an effort to say crime prevention and security is a big priority of the current administration and has been a challenge for lots of agencies over the last several years. So we want to change that policy to allow federal funds to be used for operating costs, to essentially fund whatever type of security the agencies are using. The second thing is NEPA reform. NEPA obviously can take many years to get projects through. There is a bipartisan bill, House and Senate, to allow transit agencies to take on NEPA in a different way. It'll allow them to actually make the determination for NEPA for categorical exclusions, which is the lowest category of NEPA, on their own. They don't have to go to the federal government anymore. They'll have to the agency will have to show they have the technical and legal capacity to do that, but it will free up the ability to move smaller projects certainly much more quickly and not be reliant on federal NEPA folks to actually make the approvals themselves. Split letter reform, in the process for distributing federal funds, once they come to an urbanized area, like essentially what MTC does for all the transit agencies in the Bay Area, split letter reform, split letters are the agreement that everyone makes about how those funds are distributed from MTC out to all the agencies. And that is essentially what Congress has said is, we will give the urbanized area a bunch of money, formula money. The locals decide how that money is actually divvied up. We don't get involved in that. We're not changing that with split reform. With split reform, we're advocating for the agencies that provide a significant amount of the, essentially it's the vehicle miles traveled, which is part of the formula that determines how much money comes to urbanized areas. Those agencies can keep their formula dollars based on those miles traveled by vehicle. What we're trying to do there is come up with a fairer distribution that is more formula-based as opposed to politically based locally. The last one here is obviously the capital investment grant program is critically important to VTA. In surface reauthorization, they set top-line dollar numbers for that program that another committee, the Appropriations Committee, will then actually fund. So we want the surface reauthorization to set high numbers, a high goal for that program, which is a program across the country that's, well, let me go to the next slide. So in the CIG program right now, lots of stuff is happening. When the Trump administration came in January 25, they started removing a handful of projects from the program. I think when they came in, there was probably just under 60 projects in the pipeline. I think that ran around to about 8 of them removed. most of those projects that were moved were projects that were fairly dead already. They didn't have the local support, and they'd been sitting there stagnant. So the Trump administration pulled those out. There were a few that were pulled out for political reasons, and so that's an important thing for us to all remember, that we want to keep our project, the BART project. We're trying to spend a lot of time protecting it from any of those triggers that the Trump administration might decide to pull it out of. Another important thing is that to date, no CAG project has received a grant agreement from the Trump administration since January 25, when they took control of DOT, and no big project has gone from one category called project development to another category called engineering. Essentially, the Trump administration is acting much like the first Trump administration, where they've been delaying and slow walking the CAG program. This is not a surprise to us. And there are many projects that are actually ahead of the BART project that are waiting for those approvals to happen. I want to jump down to the THUD. We also know that the administration is going to try to rewrite the rules for the CAG program. They've been pretty open and honest about that. We haven't seen yet what those rule changes are, but we're hearing things that aren't great. We have been spending, as the federal advocates, lots of time working with other CAG lobbyists and for other projects to get ahead of that and ask Congress to essentially block those rules when they come out. We want to make it very clear that the changing the rules mid-game in a lot of projects and forcing them to redesign the project or make changes to the project is costly and unproductive and not the intent of Congress. So there's a multi-group effort to protect those the rules as they stand now. Next slide. One of the things about the CAG program that's unique in the transit world is that it's incredibly bipartisan. So this is a representation of CAG projects in states that the president won. And these are, many of these states are very conservative, lots of Republicans in them, and they tend to support this project because the project really does reach out across the country. I will flag that Utah is an all-Republican state. There's no Democrats there at all in terms of members of Congress. They all support their Utah projects, and the administration knows that. I'll flag Oklahoma has a project that's in the chairman of the House Appropriations District. He's the most important person in Congress when it comes to funding this program. I'll flag that Georgia has a bunch of BRT projects that, while they're in Atlanta, they have a broad support amongst Republicans around Atlanta in the suburbs. And Ohio has at least 5 projects I can think of that are mostly BRT projects that have support of the senators. So that's just an example of this program got lots of support from both sides of the aisle, and when we approach how to protect this program, it's a very bipartisan approach. In our work on the BART Silicon Valley project, we're doing multiple different things right now to defend the project. I'll start with, we're working with regional partners, companies, and other advocates to sort of have a strong push on support for the project that's not just VTA and not just the delegation. We're working with the companies that are part of the project who are from other parts of the country and have employees all across the country, to work with them to have their members of Congress support the project. And we're always looking to expand that and add to it. We have a great chart that's in development that shows how all the jobs are going to come from across the United States. Another important thing is to explain to the Trump administration political appointees that this project is actually aligned with a lot of their priorities. So DOT is very focused on cost savings. They're very focused on cost effectiveness. They're focused on innovative procurements that save money. They're focused on safety and security, and they're also focused on a strong local cost share. So a good example of this is, and you know this, between Measure A and Measure B, this county, the taxpayers of the county have put more money into this project than any other project in the United States for a CIG program. The biggest project in the CIG program right now is Gateway. That's operating 70% federal. There's a small amount of state funds from New Jersey, New York. This project has a much stronger local commitment, and that's a selling point to the Trump administration. So as we talk to them, we're constantly reiterating these talking points, trying to show them that this project is not a blue state liberal project. It is a project that actually aligns with a lot of their talking points. I also want to stress a couple things. At some point, the Trump administration will break on CIG projects and start approving them. Congress has been upping the pressure pretty continuously. In the FY26 third appropriations bill, where they allocated, the appropriators themselves allocated money across all of the funds. That's how BSV2 got this $100 million allocation, but they did it for lots of other projects too across the country. And what they were saying there is basically, we don't trust the Trump administration to allocate the money. We're just going to do it for you in the bill. So that's locked in. And we know that the appropriators are looking to continue to push the administration and to continue to run the program. That's important because at some point that dam breaks and the Trump administration will start approving projects. I can tell you there are Republican projects that are waiting for approvals, and those members of Congress are talking to the administration too. The last thing I want to say is we've been advocating to VTA and the staff to be very flexible about how to go forward. There are lots of opportunities, I think, to move the project forward, but we're going to watch the Trump administration carefully about what they're how they start moving projects, what they're willing to do, and then we'll be flexible about what VTA does to move that project forward.
Next slide. So let me wrap up, if I may. Advocacy at any level requires everyone to be involved, and the good news is that in 2 weeks at the APTA Legislative Conference, several of you board members, the general manager, senior staff from VTA will be coming to Washington. We've got meetings set up with the FTA. We've got meetings with delegation, House and Senate. We've got meetings set up with the appropriations committees, and you've heard both of us talk about how they are funding these projects. So it's important to have everyone involved, and we do appreciate, from our position, the support that you board members provide to this project and what we're doing in Washington. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much. Do you have questions from board members? No. Great. I don't see any. Thank you very much for the presentation and for all the work. Really great update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Caroline, anything else for your report?
No. The only other thing is that there will be a lot of applications and all the NOFOs for other federal funds will be coming out. Is that correct? Within June. So all the applications and everything else that will be needed, that the federal administration has coming out, or Federal Transit Administration will be coming out soon. So we'll be trying to put any applications out, any dollars, any things that we need out. Just depends on what it is. So we'll be coming back to the board with anything that we do get or anything that we need to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much. With that, before we move on, I'll open public comment for any items under 6.2. Do we have any public comment?
No, Chair, there's no hands raised.
Okay. Move on to 6.3, which is the chair report. And do you have the presentation? Thanks so much. So I'll keep it brief today. First is that myself and Supervisor Margaret Abakoga had the chance to do a tour with our labor leaders of the new VTA headquarters, and I'm sure staff will be arranging more follow-up and tours if we have interest. But really exciting to see the facilities and all the hard work that staff has been doing to pull it together. Next slide, please. So the bulk of my presentation, most of you, in fact, some of you will have already heard from us from VTA staff, but following our last meeting, as I shared, we really went hard in reaching out to all of our local jurisdictions, all the cities, as well as the county. And you already heard also during the previous reports that staff has been presenting to and speaking with and getting input from our advisory councils and commissions. And in addition, there's dozens of community-based organizations that we are reaching out to, and some of that we have had meetings with. So I believe at this point we have over a dozen meetings scheduled, and it's really an opportunity. There's no ask. It's not asking for a resolution or an endorsement of anything. It is simply a chance to go out, be in as many communities throughout the county as possible, and give your residents an opportunity to weigh in and say, with this regional measure on the ballot, if that were to pass, what is the best use of funding for VTA to serve the diverse needs of our community. So we'll continue to be engaged in this process. April this month, I think, is when it'll be busiest with a few stragglers following that, but really working to bring back all the feedback to the board workshop and future board meetings so that we can move forward with really robust community input. So thank you to staff for all the hard work. It's a tremendous effort. I think we have one more slide here. There you see Los Altos, which was one of our first meetings. So thank you, Sam Sargent, Scott Haywood, and Manolo, who was out there. But everyone will be pitching in at some point, just with so many meetings to cover. And you can see vta.org/investment plan if you are interested or if your residents have questions. It's a place to plug in, see those upcoming meetings, and see how to weigh in. Do you have another slide, or is that might be the last one? Oh, there you go. There you see the upcoming meetings that we have scheduled. So you can see it's going to be a busy month, especially in April. I'm going to try to go to as many as I can, but as you can imagine, council meetings have conflicts with quite a few of these, but really do look forward to being throughout the community. And you can see June 4th is when we will actually take action on the local investment plan and take in all that input. So with that, I just want to see, that concludes my report. I just want to see if any board members have comments or questions. Yes, Director Sell.
I know it's a big commitment of time for staff and whoever is presenting to go to all these councils, but I think it's really important because this investment is the whole community, and lots of times I hear where agencies or cities say that we weren't informed, or so all this is really worthwhile, so thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Anyone else? Great, so it's going to be a busy couple of months, as you can see, and besides just the councils, again, there's the community-based organizations. We had a meeting with the Hispanic Foundation. We had a meeting with the School Boards Association of Santa Clara County. We were scheduling time with the Cities Association of Santa Clara County, so we'll be everywhere and anywhere. Thank you, and that takes us to our consent agenda, and these are items 7.1 through 7.14. Do we have any board members who wish to pull from or add items to the consent agenda? And if not, do we have any abstentions or recusals? If not, we'll go to public comment.
We have one hand raised over Zoom. Roland, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to 7.6.b and 7.14.6. On the first one, the voters of Santa Clara County approved approximately $1 billion for Caltrain, with $700 million for grade crossing safety improvements in Sunnyvale, Mountain View, and Palo Alto, and then capacity improvements currently in the South Bay. The issue we've got is we keep on shifting these funds for South County capacity improvements to these grade crossing improvements in Palo Alto. On 14.6, the minutes completely mischaracterize what I said. They say that I expressed skepticism about giving the contract for shifting their sports to Union Pacific. I actually recommended that we give this contract to Union Pacific because it eliminates the requirement for a railhead. Thank you.
And there are no more hands raised over Zoom.
Thank you. With that, could I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Turner and Cohen with a second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thanks so much. That passes. And we're now on with the regular agenda, beginning with 8.1, an action item to augment the transit operating budget by 50.21 million and amend the capital program budget by 17.93 million, including about 7 million from transit funds and about 10 million from external grants. The full staff recommendation will be noted on the screen and is in the agenda packet. And we will hear a brief report from Tatiana Starostina and Danny Nguyen.
Good evening. Tatiana Starostina, Chief Financial Officer, and Danny Nguyen, our Manager of Budget and Financial Planning, are here today to request your approval of the budget, of fiscal 2026 budget augmentation for approximately 68 million. And Danny will walk us through the details.
All right. Thank you, Tatiana. Good evening, directors. Danny Nguyen, Budget Manager here at the VTA. In this item, we will review the mid-year adjustment request for fiscal year 26, which is inclusive of an augmentation of the VTA transit operating budget, as well as amendments of the capital program budgets. Last year, the board adopted the fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 biennial budget. Included in the adopted budget were a number of assumptions. At the time, there were projections of softening sales tax revenues, in addition to increases in expenses that were projected to continue to outpace revenue growth. There were other uncertainties not addressed in the adopted budget, primarily related to special events for Super Bowl 60 and the FIFA World Cup events. To help mitigate these deficits in the budget and limit the impact to service, there was a 20% labor vacancy that was instituted for non-operator positions in the budget. Now we're back here today with more clear vision of the transit operation needs and requesting a mid-year adjustment to meet these operational demands. For revenue performance in fiscal year 26, we're projecting an additional 77.4 million to be realized in the transit fund. This is largely driven by the realization of one-time TDA set-aside funds of about $46 million and better than expected performance from the 1976 sales tax revenue source. This table provides an overview of the budget augmentation request for the appropriations and projections of revenues. We're asking for a $50.2 million increase in appropriations to cover labor, special event support, bus maintenance materials and supplies, safety and professional services, and contingencies. The requested increase in appropriations will be covered by revenues that we're projecting to end the fiscal year with a favorable operating balance of about $27.2 million. This table provides additional detail of the appropriation request. The largest piece is $30.2 million to adjust for a labor vacancy rate. Next, we're dedicating $10.9 million to support special events, $5.7 million for bus parts and professional services, and lastly, $3.2 million to replenish the contingency funds. Looking closely at our labor appropriation request, the fiscal year 26 adopted budget assumed a 20% vacancy rate for non-operator positions, which projected about $62 million in savings. This vacancy assumption was part of a strategy to prevent furloughs, service reductions, and depleting VTA's operating revenues in the near future. We implemented a hiring chill and paused the filling of selective roles, such as but continue to ensure that our frontline positions, such as operators and maintenance personnel, were filled. The 20% reduction relied on attrition and was a mechanism for us to minimize the deficit. However, we have not been able to realize the vacancy expectations today. By the end of December 2025, our actual vacancies hovered around 11.3% for non-operators. We're proposing to adjust the vacancy rate to 10.2% for the remainder of the fiscal year. And in doing so, we'll need to add an additional increase to labor appropriations by about $30.2 million. Moving on to special events. To support Super Bowl 60 and the FIFA World Cup events, we're requesting $10.9 million in appropriation. This is split into $5.4 million for heightened security from Ally Universal and the Sheriff's Department to manage ridership surges and crowd control, and the remaining $5.5 million for VTA personnel to provide support. To ensure fleet reliability, we're requesting $5.5 million for bus parts and maintenance support. Our hybrid series buses are experiencing out-of-warranty failures on power packs and battery modules, which were not included in the adopted budget. Replacing these components cannot be deferred, and these additional funds will allow us to address critical repairs to keep the buses operational. Moving on to revenues, we're projecting an overall increase of $77.4 million. This is made up of $24.3 million increases in sales tax, $55.9 million boost from TDA funds, which is inclusive of realizing one-time TDA set-aside funds. Looking at the 1976 half-cent sales tax, the year-to-date receipts have exceeded our initial budget. We have seen robust growth in certain areas such as B2B transactions in technology for things like data centers and AI-related transactions. However, due to geopolitical instability that we're seeing weakness in recent job reports, we're projecting growth to taper as we enter into fiscal year 27. For fiscal year 26, we project the sales tax to be $16.5 million over the budget for a total of $290.4 million. Our largest revenue increase in fiscal year 26 comes from the TDA fund. This is a quarter-cent sales tax collected by the state and returned to the county based on certain established formulas. Back in 2021, the California Department of Tax Fee and Administration, also known as CDTFA, issued a notice claiming that local taxes reported by an online retailer were overstated going back to 2019. The transaction should have been classified as use tax and not sales tax. The county filed a petition and then later an appeal against its determination to protect these revenues. As the appeal was going through the process, VTA began to proactively set aside a portion of the TDA revenues to soften any unfavorable legal outcomes. Recently, the county and CDTFA settled this dispute on how the tax revenues from the online retailer will be handled. First, the CDTFA rule change will take effect as of January 2026. Second, the CDTFA will begin to recoup the tax revenues dispersed that should have been classified as use tax from the period of July 2024 through January 2026. As mentioned earlier, during the appeal process, VTA reserved TDA funds in a set-aside fund, which has a balance of about $62 million. As the CDTFA begins to recoup tax revenues, VTA will use the set-aside funds to pay back these costs. We estimate the total amount to pay back at $16 million. With $16 million of the set-aside fund used to pay back the CDTFA, there's a remaining amount of $46 million, which may now be realized in fiscal year 26 as revenue. Moving on to the capital side, we're amending the fiscal year 26 transit capital program budget by a total of $13.1 million and the transit-oriented development capital program by $4.8 million for a total of $70.9 million. Here's an overview of the 5 projects that are requesting amendments to their budgets. And this is a recap of the operating adjustments that we're requesting in the appropriations for fiscal year 26. The resulting net surplus at the end of the fiscal year is, again, is projected to be $27.2 million. And with that, our staff recommendation is the board approve the augmentation and modification to the fiscal year 26 adopted budget, and to augment the transit operating budget by $50.21 million, and amend the capital program budget by $13.13 million as detailed today. That's the end of our presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much for the presentation. Colleagues, any questions for staff? Director Kamei? Then ex officio Burt.
It's not a question, but when this came to our Finance Committee, you know, I pointed out to staff that the funds from CDTFA and that rolling is going to be used in this recommendation to offset ongoing costs, so that as we start looking at next fiscal year, you know, in terms of when it came last year, when the budget came to us last year, the 20% vacancy rate I thought was really like, I've never seen anything like it. But we went with it and thought, you know, we had these vacancies, we were going to try and do this. It turned out not to be the case, which sometimes does happen. But as we move forward in the next fiscal year, I always am very hesitant about using one-time funds for ongoing expenses. And so I don't know where the revenue is coming from, but I anticipate that when it comes before us, staff will have a good plan as to how that's going to be laid out. So I just want to, you know, let other board members know as well that, you know, this is something that, you know, I'm concerned about, but I do feel that there is a pathway to not being concerned. So I just want to point it out because I think it's important that we not use these one-time funds for ongoing expenses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to follow on Director Kamei's comments. And first, can you clarify for those of us who weren't on the Finance Committee, the additional funding from the state adjustment, is that a one-time revenue, or is that going to be ongoing at an equivalent amount?
The funding for TDA, so we set aside funding back in 2021, and we received TDA funding on a monthly basis, and a portion of that was put into a set-aside fund as we waited for the outcome of the legal appeal from the county to the state.
Okay, so we had accumulated those in a set-aside. So what amount of that, if any, is it a fraction of that we would then see on an ongoing basis because we wouldn't continue to set aside, or am I misunderstanding that?
That's correct. So of the $62 million, we would have to use $16 million of that to pay back the state, and then the remaining amount would be realized in the current fiscal year.
But I'm still trying to get a handle on going forward. Is there some fraction of that amount that will be a revenue going forward?
Yes, let me just chime in. So we are going to keep some of that set aside on the books because we will be paying on a quarterly basis back to CDTFA the amounts that they would withhold from the revenues in the future. So what we will be doing, we will be offsetting those deductions with releasing the funds that we've accumulated. So that will help offset the negative variance in the future.
But by how much?
Well, we currently estimate it's going to be about $16 million over 4 years, right?
Okay, so the bulk of this is a one-time then?
That's correct.
So given that we had projected deficits going forward and an uncertainty on whether there's going to be the regional tax, the notion that we're going to go from what was very aggressive belt tightening on our labor through vacancy rates, and that was overwhelmingly in non-service provision, right? That was a big cut, and that I agree that that was very aggressive and questionable whether it be achievable. But instead, we've got an 11.3% vacancy this year and projecting to go down from there while we have this uncertainty going forward. And if the regional tax passes, we're in good shape. If it doesn't pass, I'm really questioning whether we should be spending at this rate in a year where we have somewhat of a windfall with really uncertain horizon. So if I was voting on this, I'm not sure I'd support it. Thank you.
Let me probably address some of this. So 2026, in this particular year, what we are seeing are two things. First of all, our sales tax revenues have been coming strong. So we are seeing stronger than budgeted sales tax revenues. Now, you can also argue, we don't really know, is it one time, is it going to continue, especially in the current events. But it is helping us overall pay for the labor expenses that are also ongoing, right? Then we also have one-time special event expenses and also that increase in the maintenance needs this year that we are going to look and see how we can budget for this maybe in a different way to avoid such a big impact on the P&L in the future, on the income statement. So I would not characterize this request as a request to use one-time funds to cover the expenses. Now, we are going to continue scrutinizing our situation in fiscal 2027. Now, we're not asking you right now to make any adjustment to the 2027 numbers for many different reasons, right? There's still a lot of uncertainty, and I think the question still remains, what should we assume for our vacancy factor next year? So we ask your patience. Let us look through what is going to happen in the next 2 quarters. First of all, it's going to help us understand whether we should now anticipate maybe a different situation even without sales tax revenues in the future, right? And then we will bring a recommendation for 2027 when we feel that we're ready to make a statement. Meanwhile, we continue managing the labor expenses very tightly. So we're not asking you to just sort of give us a blank check. If you remember, we put a cap on the head count, and any additional head count has to come to the board for approval. So that is still the case. We are looking at every vacancy on the non-operator side to determine whether it's truly the vacancy that needs to be filled. So we continue scrutinizing it. And 11% that we were able to achieve is a good result because our regular sort of normal vacancy is about 8%. So you can see that we have some results. Of course, it's not the 20%, but as a lot of you stated, it probably wasn't realistic to expect 20%, especially so quickly.
And then we had higher labor expenses from our labor agreements than were in our prior budget. But the good news is that sales tax, as you said, have come in higher. We saw some kind of scary projections on sales tax a year ago, what was projected. I didn't see, I saw the absolute numbers, but I didn't see on a sales tax increase on a percentage basis what we had projected versus what we are now projecting for this year. And then what are we assuming going forward?
So year to date, we're about 8% ahead of the budget. So it's about 15 million just for our core sales tax measure.
8% of whatever we
Budget.
were, of the budget. But what were, we had a certain revenue from sales tax projected,
Correct.
and now we have a new one. That prior revenue was assuming a certain amount of sales tax increase from the prior year. Now we have a higher amount projected. What are those percentages?
Danny, do we have the percentages? We have the total numbers for sure in the packet. I don't think we calculated the percentages. Point well taken, we should. But we do have the numbers in the packet, line by line, so we can give you that. Can we respond to this right away?
Yeah, let's see.
Okay. We have, I think, about 16 million in, at least in sales tax measure from 1976. Give us just 1 second. We'll give you the exact number. So because we have 3 different sales tax measures that support the transit fund, obviously the biggest one being from 1976. It was on the slide before, so we're now forecasting.
But they're
It's
all,
about 16 million higher.
they're all going up at whatever
That's
percent
correct.
increase went up.
That's correct.
Okay.
They all at least have been so far going up, and we have a conservative assumption here, so we are only taking into account the increases that already happened. Assuming for the next 2 quarters, we're pretty much staying with the forecast that the consultants provided to us, and they're staying very conservative, pretty much no increase over last year.
Yeah. And it's good to hear we're conservative, but we do have a lot of financial uncertainty nationally.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Sell.
So I'm looking at slide 5, and it seems like the items there are sort of necessities. And the special events, we don't expect next year to have a special event cost. This year it's for FIFA, right? And then for labor, it is what it is. It's not 20%. It's on the order of the 10%. So you're just realizing that. And then in terms of the bus maintenance and the battery packs, that's a one-time thing, or it's not like yearly, annually? We're going to have to do that, or that's a question.
For the battery models and power packs, they are replaced based off of mileage, so between 300 and 400,000 miles, and also when they fail as well. So we will include those scheduled maintenance of those or replacement of those in our future budgets.
Okay. So when I look at slide 5, I don't see, huge impacts in costs. So I think it seems reasonable to me. So thank you for presenting this.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Okay, if not, we'll go to public comment at this point. Do we have anyone in the public wishing to speak?
Yes, we have one hand raised over Zoom. Roland, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Thank you. So first, a compliment, and then I'm going to close up with a word of caution. First, I would like to express my appreciation for the clarity of the presentation, and by the way, also the earlier presentation on actual amounts and source of funds for FIFA. This is a vast improvement over what was presented at the Finance Committee. But in closing, I've got a word of caution about this transfer of $7.3 million from transit funds to capital, which quite frankly is likely to cause headwinds with the passage of Senate Bill 16 in the fall. Because there may be questions about the wisdom of transferring transit funds to capital while supposedly we are facing a fiscal cliff. Thank you.
And there are no more hands raised over Zoom.
Thank you. We have someone, I think, in the chambers who wishes to speak. Just please feel free to come up.
name's Brad Balmer. I'm a concerned citizen. I look at this budget, and I was here at the meeting where you went over the first one, and you gave the CFO at the same time an award for being great. Took pictures with him, and he promised, or he said we'd have a 20% attrition, which anybody with a finance degree or even the knowledge of math knew was wrong. Yet you approved the budget. And you told the team that they would be held accountable to that budget. Now you're giving them an out card and a free pass to not meet their budget, yet trains run empty, buses are empty all the time, and you're not willing to make the hard decisions. You guys really need to look at yourselves, hold yourselves accountable, and make the hard decisions to do what's right, and because you promised that it would be sustainable. This isn't the type of sustainability that the VTA needs. You actually need to have a plan. A plan is not hope, right? Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, that closes our public comment period. I'll bring it back for any last comments. I just have one comment. Thank you for the work. I think those updates will be really critical as we see how the receipts are coming in. I just want to be extremely clear that, you know, ex officio Bert, to your point, it's true that we're in better shape if the regional measure passes, but the direction of this board has been very clear that if that does pass and we do get those funds, that the expectation is not that it's just going to be more of the same. We're just backfilling. The expectation from past workshops, directions, planning meetings, I think has been fairly consistent that we really want that funding to be transformative. So without getting off in a whole other topic and just staying with this, I don't think it's enough to say that we're hopeful that more revenue will come in. We really have to look at our assumptions during the upcoming budgeting period. And not just assume that's going to come in, because even if it does, I don't think that's the answer we're looking for. Any final comments? Director Kamei.
Thank you. Just to follow up on what you said, you know, when things come to us and a recommendation is made, I put a lot of weight on what staff recommends, but I also am expressing extreme concern because I don't want you to think just of 1 year or 2 years. I want you to think longer, because I think that one of the things that is not clear to me, and maybe over time it'll become clearer, is that, you know, there are limited funds, right? And yes, we want a balanced budget, but I think that, you know, to the gentleman's comments on sustainability, we need to start thinking about how do we make it so that every year it's going to get a little bit better and not just rely on, you know, 1 or 2 items, right? I think that it's kind of lucky, really lucky, that we have a windfall this year, right? That doesn't always come. And who knows what's going to happen with the measure, right? That doesn't always come either. We have sunsetting measures coming up. So I really think that, and this is something that I think maybe I would ask Carolyn to think about, you know, the long term. And I know that you are, because we've had discussions. But the long term, you know, in terms of how we're going to be able to do everything we need to within the budgets that we have. So I think we need a little bit more work in that arena. And I'm going to go ahead and move this item. But I also am giving you a foreshadowing of, you know, really wanting more than just a recommendation. I think you got to go a little bit deeper, and perhaps it'll be better to have just a little bit more information. So with that, I'll go ahead and move the item.
Thank you, and I'll second. Any last comments? Great. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you. This item does need a 2/3 by the board to pass, which it does. Thank you. Thank you, staff, for the presentation. Next on our agenda is item 8.2, the Transit Security Advisory Committee update. And we will hear from Lieutenant Jeffrey Taylor, TSAC Vice Chair.
Good afternoon. So I'm the Vice Chair of the Transit Security Advisory Committee, and we're on the agenda for just an overview and a background for the TSAC. Next slide. So we're going to go give you a quick membership overview of our TSAC, key accomplishments, and discuss what the next step is for the TSAC committee. Next slide. So background for AB 1735, it authorizes VTA to the authority to issue prohibition orders to any person cited for committing specified acts outlined in Assembly Bill 1735. So it provides VTA with a tool to enhance the safety of VTA workers, passengers, and improve the rider experience and promote more ridership for the system. It requires, and part of that AB 1735 is to promote, it requires VTA to establish an advisory committee, which is 7 TSAC members, and we were appointed in January of 2025. So our role is to ensure that VTA staff responsible for issuing and enforcing prohibition orders receive training as recommended by the committee. And our committee members, next slide, are Raj Singh. He's the ATU labor union representative. Myself, I'm the law enforcement representative. I have Larry Bajwa. He's a ASME labor union. We got Kathy Ford from mental health. We do have a vacant community at large member, and they are searching for a person to fill that role. And Sergio Liviakis is unhoused community-based organizations, and we have Ivana Liu, our youth advocate. So we have a variety of point of views on this committee. So our key accomplishments is January 25, we were appointed. February, we started the workshop to get the rules and bylaws for the TSAC responsibilities. April, we conducted an orientation training workshop with more rules on what our role is in this committee, or for this committee. And then April conducted training on the Brown Act, chair and vice chair roles, and Rosenberg's rules of order for AB 1735. May, next slide. In May, we established ad hoc committees to develop recommendations for customer codes of conduct. And then June, TSAC conducted a TSAC workshop to review and draft customer codes of conduct and guiding principles for the rules that we're establishing. The TSAC members in July developed 25 recommended codes of conduct, and we met with the county's DA's office to discuss 1735's enforcement within Santa Clara County and for VTA. In August, the VTA communications group presented to TSAC on outreach strategies to obtain feedback on the 25 codes that we came up with, and we appointed an ad hoc prohibition orders committee to further develop the draft of prohibition orders. November 2025, oh, there you go. VTA Communications Department conducted a code of conduct survey to obtain feedback and ranking the codes in order of importance for the ridership. And we did that to show our focus on what the people at the community want out of us. And in December, we received survey results and feedback from riders of the customer codes, and the TSAC members met with the County Board of Behavioral Services to discuss training for the VTA staff in mental health responsibilities when we're enforcing AB 1735 for the transit security officers. And then 2026, the ad hoc committee of prohibition orders advised the TSAC on the safety and security division. Additional budgeting by the agency must be approved to be compliant with AB 1735. And the TSAC members met with the County Office of Supportive Housing to discuss training for VTA staff and responsibility for enforcement of AB 1735, reaching out to the community at large. And we adopted the customer codes of conduct, and then based on consultation from the Office of General Counsel, approved adding code of conduct to safety and security update to the ordinances. Next slide, there we go. So some of our next steps is provide feedback to the safety and security for update of ordinance 98.1 for how to enforce the TSAC rules. Approve training recommended for the Transit Security Officers Academy for customers who are unhoused or have mental health disabilities. Fill the vacant at-large committee member seat, and launch public notice campaign for prohibition orders program as required under AB 1735, and then develop a pilot program to review and evaluate outcomes, and then develop a database to review and evaluate and report results from AB 1735. Once the prohibition order program begins, prepare an annual report for the state legislature as required under AB 1735, so we can see what the results of the laws are, how they're enforced. And then final recommendation for us is approve a safety and security update to ordinance 98.1. Updates including enabling STOs to enforce the law within VTA district, and update the customer code of conduct, and adding state statutes to be enforced that underlie AB 1735 and AB 394. And we need approval of additional funding necessary to implement AB 1735, including prohibition order, administration, staffing, as well as non-personnel expenses, including citation books, citation and prohibition order software database, and public notice campaign. The goal is to have STOs fully functional by FIFA World Cup, which will be at Levi Stadium and hosting the 6 matches that we've talked about at this meeting already. So in order to achieve this, the agency and the board must adopt and approve the updated ordinance of 98.1 and the approved additional funding for prohibition orders administration.
Thank you so much for the presentation. First, I just want to say I remember when the criteria for this committee were brought forward. At the time, the committee was SSTPO, and the debates over who should sit on it and what. So great to see that now result in your service. So thank you so much for your time, and all of your colleagues for your service on the committee. Do we have any questions first from colleagues? Director Weinberg.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. This is very important work. I'm curious if the authorities who are empowered to issue a prohibition order are contemplating doing so, what sort of due process protections does the accused have before the order is entered? And are there appellate procedures? And is there, assuming it's found that a prohibition order is warranted, is there any kind of remediation or rehabilitation so that someone can come off of the list?
Yes, it's not just a one person or one opinion to whether a person needs to be or should be issued a prohibition order. If there is based on the subject's actions, there's a prohibition order issued to them, they will have the option to appeal the order before an arbitrary third party, and then it'll go before, and they'll review the facts and circumstances, and they'll make a decision whether it should be upheld or not. And it's not an order that goes into effect immediately, especially if you appeal it. There's going to be basically a waiting period, for lack of a better term, to go before that, and then, like I say, you'll have a review of it, and if it still doesn't meet the standard and you want to appeal again, we'll find another panel there's another panel that can review it as well.
Okay. Once a prohibition order is found justified and it's issued, how is that going to be enforced throughout the system?
The system is, they're tracking the people that get put on the prohibition order, and the officers that are enforcing it will be able to query a database to see if it's actually still valid. And if it's still valid, they can be issued or escorted off the system for violating the order.
So if someone is deemed to be a danger, there's a prohibition order issued, how is a coach operator going to know that the person who's getting onto the coach right now and puts cash into the machine isn't supposed to be riding?
Can I? Yeah. Hi, this Aston Green, VTA's Chief for System Safety and Security. I'm the staff representative for the TSAC. And that is an excellent question. And I've been involved with several suspension programs like this on the East Coast and in LA. And the answer to that question is a very unique one. If an individual who was suspended from the system comes back on the system and their behavior is not noticeable, then we have achieved the goal. The only time a suspension is going to be checked is when there is a subsequent infraction, and then it's determined that this person who is committing a repeated behavioral offense is suspended from the system. And then that gives us the authority at that point to escort them off of the system to enforce the suspension. So the goal, of course, in the program is really behavioral modification. It is not to find ways to suspend people and then go looking for them throughout the system in some sort of surveillance action. No, the goal is that the suspension should teach you that these behaviors are not acceptable, they're not peaceful, and not productive and conducive for a transit environment, so don't do them again. And so the means to the end is to modify the behavior. So there will be no screening, if you will, to see who is and who is not suspended from the system. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, and thank you very much for that clarification. That explanation completely changed my perspective on it. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. Was there another hand over here? Anyone else? Okay, I'll go to public comment. Do we have anyone online
No, Chair, we do not.
or in the room? Okay. And this is an informational item, so we do not need an action tonight, but I'll just check again if there are any last comments. Great. Thank you again,
Thank you.
not just for the presentation, but for all the work on this, and Aston as well. Thanks for stepping up.
Thank you.
That takes us to 8.3, which is the transit signal priority policy template for local jurisdictions. And we'll hear from Deborah DeGang, Chief Planning Officer, who will introduce the rest of our speakers.
Yeah, there we go. It's on now. I see the red
Is it
light.
on now? Okay, thank you.
Got a red light.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'm Deborah DeGang, the Chief Planning Officer, and a little technology challenge, but we figured it out. Thank you. So we're really excited to bring this topic to you today. This came up at a previous board meeting with wanting to know more about TSP policy. What can we do to speed up transit, make it more reliable? And what we're so excited about this is that this is an item that we really could use your help as board members to help us deliver this. And it's a very low-cost item moving forward. So it's really about TSP policy. So I have with me today Jay Tyree, our Deputy Director of Transit Service and Capital Planning, and Tamiko Purcell, our Senior Transportation Planner. So I'm going to turn it over to Tamiko, who's been our project manager for this effort.
Is this on?
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening. So over the past few years, we've made significant progress in funding equipment upgrades and deploying TSP across our transit network. We are continuing to do that work, but now we are also moving into the next phase of TSP, which is making it work a lot more effectively to make transit faster and more reliable. At the board workshop in February, staff discussed how the benefits that could come from transit being about 20% faster, and we're pretty confident that up to 10% of that speed improvement could come from TSP alone. One of the issues is that the TSP technology does a really great job of enabling us to get good benefits, but on its own, it can't deliver the full benefit. If we really want to see meaningful improvements to transit speed and reliability, the key lever for that is really when and how TSP is applied in each of your jurisdictions. We're concentrating on the frequent network, which carries about 85% of our riders and experiences the majority of delay in our transit network. On this map, for anyone not familiar, the frequent bus network are the red lines, and the frequent light rail is the light rail green, blue, and green, or orange. By focusing TSP here, we will experience the greatest benefits while also keeping the scope manageable. So we're not talking about a blanket policy across the whole county or whole city. It's really targeting just the corridors where it's going to make the greatest difference for transit. About 92% of the frequent network intersections have the equipment and technology needed to support TSP. About 67% are actually already actively deploying TSP. We're also making some light rail modifications. But the important part here is that deployment alone doesn't guarantee that we're automatically going to get results. In many cases, TSP is turned on, active, and operating, and we have yet to see any improvement to transit. And that's primarily because the majority of the impacts of transit happen in the day-to-day decisions that staff are making all the time after TSP is deployed. This is a very high-level kind of circular diagram of what the ongoing operations and maintenance are like after TSP is deployed. So decisions often become rules in how TSP operates, and these are really policy decisions that are being made on the fly. Things like how priority is granted, how often systems are monitored and maintained, and how do you manage the different trade-offs. And the trade-offs are a real issue with TSP. The biggest one probably being the transit priority versus side street delay. That comes up quite a bit. Staff at your jurisdictions do a really great job of trying to improve transit as much as possible without causing too much impact to vehicles while they're doing that. We might call these sort of no impact improvements. And we're seeing that the limit is being reached to how much improvement can occur without impacting vehicles. And that's marginal, maybe about a percentage point improvement for transit, sometimes a little more, sometimes less than that. So if we want to reach that 10% improvement in speed that was talked about at the board workshop, we really need to have policy that provides clear direction and explicitly states how to handle some of these trade-offs and how to really support the operations and maintenance cycle. So in practice, the policy should guide that operations and maintenance cycle, and we see 4 key ways: making TSP the default, not the exception, on our frequent network routes, aligning the traffic operations with VTA's transit performance metrics. We have some in our currently adopted transit speed policy, which we'll be bringing back with more clear KPIs later this year. It should also guide the trade-offs, so everybody knows what is going to happen under different circumstances, and then managing the ongoing performance of transit so it doesn't degrade over time. So the policy template that you requested, we aimed to provide practical guidance while also making it flexible to work with how each different jurisdictions manages their traffic signal, their intersections. It's adaptable to the local context. That's what we aimed for, and we're really hoping that this eliminates the need to start from scratch. VTA staff is also available to help with adapting the policy to local priorities. So to recap, we know that the infrastructure is ready or in progress. We know where the impact is going to be highest, and we have the framework to apply TSP. So the opportunity we see now is for each of the local jurisdictions to adopt a TSP policy to help make transit faster. The policy should really be explicit so that everybody, whether it's staff, VTA, or the public, know what to expect from TSP at our intersections. Without a policy in place at each jurisdiction on the frequent network, I think we should all expect that some of the TSP benefits are going to remain unrealized. We don't really want that to happen, obviously, so we're looking forward to hearing if there's any feedback we can incorporate into the template to make it easier for each of your jurisdictions to use, if there's anything else in the process that we can improve to remove as many barriers as possible from your jurisdictions adopting a TSP policy. That concludes my presentation.
And I just wanted to add to what Tamika was saying. So what we're really looking for you from board members and representing your jurisdictions is we really need that firm direction to your staff that, yes, you actually believe in transit priority. The equipment's there. That was a huge barrier at first to not being able to implement this. That now that it's there, understandably at a staff level, if they have to do the trade-off between impacting cars and impacting transit, they need to react to what their policy makers have told them is the priority, and that's really the rub. As Tamiko said, we're getting some priority, but now it impacts the cars. We need to pull back. And if transit's going to have a priority, we do need to recognize. And again, this is very limited. It's just in our frequent network, but that's what we're asking you for today.
Great, thank you. Again, I want to thank you for the work. I know this has been a really long time coming. I think going back to before I came on the board, when I came on, I remember all those discussions. I want to see first if colleagues have any questions on this. I'll check on this side first. Over here, Director Sell.
I don't know if you have it, but it would be, sometimes it would be good to have like a case study to be able to show, okay, this road, high traffic road, did not have transit priority. And then transit priority was put in, and how much did it speed up? And how did that overall impact the system? Just as, that would probably be helpful, I think.
And we do have some of those examples, and we'll also keep monitoring this and keep reporting back on those KPIs.
Okay, thank you.
Ex officio Burt. Oh, Director Candela, sorry. It's hard to tell from this angle. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. It's a little low, or either my water bottle. No, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Tamiko and Deborah and Jay for your presentation. San Jose has actually been a leader on this, and I'm proud to, obviously be on not just the city's representative, but in my capacity in the city of San Jose, it's important that, we as leaders have to echo that transit first policy, not just to our staff, but to our residents, to our neighbors, obviously have that clear and open dialogue on what those trade-offs are. But obviously, if we want more ridership, more faster buses to meet those headways that we all aspire to meet, I think this is one of those key investments that we can make. And I know for us in the city, we've actually upgraded our older light detection systems to an AI-based model, which saw a 90% increase of green lights on that route system, and so I would encourage obviously all of our colleagues to champion these kinds of policies and champion the TSP investments. And more importantly, the adoption of the policy in our cities, and hopefully have an integrated county transportation network that could, as one of our colleagues who's not here, as Mayor Mahan always says, have a transit system that users choose, not that choosers depend on. And so I appreciate the report and look forward to the implementation and to realizing the full potential of the TSP program. Thank you.
Thank you. I think now ex officio Byrne, then we'll go to Director Kamei.
Okay. I think this is a great update, and I really support the direction as well as kind of the theme of flexibility. I do want to hear more about the specific San Jose AI empowered smart system. But I did want to raise the issue that as we're saying this is transit priority, we have actually a couple of transit systems that can compete. The 522 and 22 runs mostly on the El Camino corridor, parallel to Caltrain. Wherever we have at-grade crossings, which we're going to continue to have more than we hope for because of the cost of grade separations and the limited funding, signal prioritization to be able to have adequate capacity crossing the tracks is another factor that we need to consider. So I just want to make sure that we're really looking at coordinating with Caltrain and the cities. And for that matter, other than San Jose, I think all the cities on the corridor, Caltrans controls El Camino rather than the city itself. And so that ends up being a four-party discussion. But I just want to make sure that was out on the table because that's a very important part of the whole network capacity, considering our bus optimization along with the impact of the trains.
And I'll speak to that a little bit. So fortunately, Caltrans is recently statewide started issuing, and Tamiko's serving as our representative on their task forces. They've started leading some efforts on being more transit focused on the state highway system. And one of the specific points that we've made with both local district and statewide Caltrans is they can be a leader if they can get out on top of this on their own state highway system. Right now, they still tend to defer to the local cities, so yes, you need to coordinate with them, but if they can take a leadership role and really support transit, that'll make a big impact. So we are in active conversations with them.
I'll also speak to the AI TSP part. We actually helped fund some of the San Jose system, and we've secured grants for Campbell, Sunnyvale, and just recently 3 more cities. I don't know if I can say them yet or not, but we have been working actively to get as many grants as possible so we can deploy that system across the whole county. So we do have a lot of information. I'd be happy to provide you with some more of it.
But this is a great example. But I like to say we've done a lot of work to get the light switch in place. What we need your help with is how bright is the bulb when we turn the switch on? And that's really where the tension is that if we're going to give priority to transit, we're taking some time away from the cross-street mixed flow traffic, and we need that support with your staff.
Thank you. Director Kamei, and then Director Jane.
Yeah. Speaking of that support, I wonder if, I know this is an information item, and thank you so much for the presentation, but I'm just wondering if there could be a letter from our chair to the alternates and those who are not here today to say, we need your help to make this transit first priority really happen. And I think that going back to Director Sell in terms of example, what Tamiko just said in terms of what's happening with AI and the sort of like these grants that are coming up as examples of, hey, maybe people have an old system, they don't want to change, it costs a lot of money. So I think that those things may motivate, and maybe just a letter from our chair saying to everyone who was not here, as well as sending it out. I just think it's important because I think that it is something that is helpful for us to really get, our tagline is solutions that move you, right? Yeah. And so the only way to get people going is to really sort of create a wave of enthusiasm about, using AI. Look at what others have done. And, our Director Candelas already talked about how, San Jose has been a leader in this, and thank you for the grant. And I think others can, sort of see the demonstration of what can happen. Yes, cars will have a little bit of inconvenience perhaps from time to time, but over time, I think it's going to make a difference. So I don't know if that's possible or whatever, but I think it's important to be able to sort of like amplify the work that you're doing. And the only way we do that is by multiple ways. It's from each of us individually, but as well as collectively, yes. Right? And so I think it's important to be able to see, and I don't know if we could do it by just consensus or whatever, without objection, to be able to do something along those lines. And I would leave it to the chair to figure out with our general manager just how you do all of that. And it would be helpful for us to come together on it. Thank you.
Yeah, first, it's a great idea. I'm happy to do that. But Carolyn, do you want to say anything more?
I think, with that and some of the data that we, primarily Jay showed at the last workshop, just just those travel time savings, what they do in terms of our ability to provide more service out there that's not there because of congested hours, but actually more service hours out there serving people is what's really important to us. So I think, making that case in there and why that's so important for us and what that achieves, I think is really what we really want to be able to do. And so I think we could draft a letter that we feel, I think, drives home sort of what VTA is trying to accomplish. And I think it actually helps support the work that we're doing around the investment plan and around the that is a lot of the work. And I think some of that, if the, going forward, the work that we want to put into signal priority is to help invest in the cities and their signals to be able to do the transit priority.
Okay. Thank you. Director Jane?
Yeah, so we get a lot of pushback when we try to do road diets and add bike lanes to streets, and people say it's going to increase my travel time. In terms of transit signal priority, there's a lot of parameters to adjust. How long are you going to hold the light? Could it be 10 seconds or 15 seconds? What kind of, and I know you have consulting for the cities, but what kind of help do you give cities to really analyze, because drivers will always complain, but to say that, the queue increased from, on the side street increased from 10 cars to 12 cars. Do you have hardware or do you have anything where you can track those actual queue depths on the side streets?
So in your city, they've recently implemented a different system from the one from San Jose, but it does a lot of the same things, including collecting a significant amount of data. We haven't had a chance to dig into all of it yet, but our understanding is that we can look at those different issues. So our hope is to start on that very soon and get a pretty big data dump from your engineers and start analyzing it. So we should be able to provide something and also help them with how we analyze transit as well.
Tamika, we have consultants and we have traffic. Casey's group has traffic. We have traffic engineers on staff as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that how much hand-holding will you do for the cities to analyze that? Because, like you said, if it impacts cars, you turn it on and you say impact cars, so now we have to pull back. But I need to know,
Right.
I have to have the data to go to the residents and say, it didn't really increase the side street queue depths.
Yeah. So we have been doing quite a bit for the city of San Jose since they've had their system deployed for the longest. And we can definitely start looking into how we expand that across the other cities and come up with something. So we'll connect with your team for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? No, if not, we'll go to public comment, and we have a card from Harry Neal.
Good evening. Apologies, I am a bit sick, but this is incredibly exciting. Thank you guys for your presentation. This is very, very, very exciting. I would like to highlight one of the things that Director Jane mentioned. Drivers will always complain. It doesn't matter if their queue gets better, they will somehow imagine that it got worse. And I say this as a driver. One thing I would like you guys to do, if possible, is shoot for a high, even unrealistic target. So if you have to negotiate with the cities, you negotiate from something higher than what you want. So you might meet in the middle at what we actually want. TSP is so, so crucial to making sure that our network is more efficient and making sure that transit is a realistic option for as many people as possible. Especially looking at some of the data from the board workshop, seeing that a 20% improvement in speed would be an enormous increase in ridership as well. Thank you.
We have one comment over Zoom. Blair Beekman, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Hopefully my Zoom will work. There apparently was some problems with Zoom today, so thank you. I've been listening to the meeting all night this evening. Thank you for it. Really nice comments from people. thinking about how to create a bit of excitement for the future of the program, how people can ridership issues. Thanks for people's words on the subject. I'm sure you all remember back in the early and mid 2000s into the teens, bicycle use was doing some really interesting work that I think was creating the sort of excitement for the future of public transit that I hope we can eventually return to someday, and that we've kind of neglected and let it go. And to rebuild that excitement towards bus transit, I hope we bring around the bicycle issues again. Good luck how we work on our better reasoning and best practices here at the local level this time. It can really help the international level a lot. Thanks a lot, guys.
And I'd like to note for the record that written public comment was submitted and is also included in the online agenda portal. And that concludes public comment.
Thanks so much. Any last comments? I just want to thank you again for this work. We know it's been a long time coming, and I said something to this effect at the workshop, but we've been talking about transit signal priority for so long, and so it really feels like this year, even just recently, that there's been a sea change in the excitement, the understanding of what that means for communities. It's not just this wonky technical term, but it means getting to where you need to go faster. And so I think the more we can talk about that, I love the discussion, the ideas. But it's so exciting that we've really turned the page in how our communities seem to think about and appreciate this. But that work didn't come out of nowhere. It's because we've been building towards that for a long time. So thank you. Appreciate it. And Caroline, I want to acknowledge your leadership as well, because this policy is something you talked about for a long time. So thank you. Appreciate it. So again, this is an information item, doesn't need a motion, so we move on to 8.4, the BSB2 project update. And this will be our regular update while they're coming up. Tom McGuire, our Chief Capital Mega Projects Delivery Officer, will introduce our speakers.
Good evening, directors. Tom McGuire, Chief Mega Projects Officer, and I'm joined by Erica Rokes, our Deputy Director of External Affairs, and Sarah Wilson, our Construction Director, to give you our monthly update on the BSB2 program. So we'll start like we always do with our current program-wide financial reports. I'm going to direct your attention just to a couple of numbers on this screen. The categories 10 and 40 are the heavy construction. Most of that is being spent at the West Portal site, which Sarah Wilson is going to take us on a deeper dive in a few minutes. So you see the 12.6 million spent in category 10 and the 3.9 spent in category 40. Again, that shows the continued pace of construction out at the West Portal, and you can see a similar amount accrued for the week ahead. The other area I want to highlight is line 80, professional services. We've seen a significant increase in professional services spending since last December, and that is because our general engineering consultant is moving quickly has moved quickly to mobilize staff and is taking the designs that came through the cost savings process we looked at throughout 2025 and bringing them up to the 60% design level that is necessary for two things. Number one, to advance the packaging of the contracts of the work after the tunnel, and also for us to continue to validate and rebaseline our costs so we have a more precise cost estimate going forward into the FFGA process. I'm now going to hand it to Sarah to talk a little bit about our West Portal.
Okay, here's our West Portal graphic. This graphic shows status as of March 20th, and I'm going to give you some percentages, which are actually as of last Friday. So starting from the right-hand side, our sheet pile area is 100% complete. Then moving to the U-wall panel area, between excavation progress and bracing process, we're at roughly between 88% and 90% complete, with some of the bracing already being removed. Part of our bracing system is temporary until the invert or the floor is cast and reaches its design strength. So we'll see pieces come out so that we can have enough room for the major equipment to head in and out and service the tunnel operation. Then moving to the cut and cover panel section, that section is more like, there's slightly different percentages for excavation versus bracing, and those are at roughly 40% complete. And then in the cat shaft area, the walls themselves are 90% complete. So we just have a couple more panels for the cat shaft, and we're starting to see the cross walls, which go vertically and bisect the sections of the Caterpillar. Those are all 100% complete. What we're starting to see now at the project site is the cap beam reinforcement going in. So there's all around the perimeter of the cat shaft, there's a significant structural element that goes all along the top, and that's called the cap beam. And it's impressive. It's fun to see, and we've got formwork going up where you can start to see the outline of the cat shaft itself. So the green on the top is, if you haven't seen this in a bit and you need a reminder of what you're looking at, the green indicates complete panels. The orange is panels in progress, and then looking down below the isometric view to the elevation view, the blue or light blue indicates current excavation progress. So that's where it's colored in blue. There is now an opening. Okay, current cost and schedule status of the West Portal work includes the same approved scope change dollar value of $11.882 million, and that is still largely comprised of the confinement wall, which was the confinement wall structure, which is required for tunneling and was added to the KST scope because it represents, we're taking advantage of the mobilization of the major subcontractor, Malcolm Drilling, to install those elements now rather than having them cost us more later. The trends number did go down by approximately $4 million in the past month, and now is at 10.4. It went down largely because of the decrease in schedule impact captured below that in the schedule numbers below, where the initial assessment that KST provided was a 63-day schedule impact due to the UPRR delay, and it went down to 46, and there's an associated cost with that reduced schedule impact. So that's the biggest piece of the reduction in the trends. Again, trends are what we are looking out for in both changes that we expect to acknowledge and get complete backup from the contractor and recognize and actually issue a change order, but also anything that could possibly come our way. So it's a worst case scenario number where even where we don't think that there's necessarily merit, but we know that the contractor will be asking. So even with that worst case scenario, back up to the cost, we are at a budget of $420 million, which represents a 2.5% increase from the original budget, which by typical metrics is quite good. And we continue to see schedule recovery. The official extension of KST's schedule at the West Portal gives them until mid-May of next year to complete the West Portal. Based on the current information at the site that our teams are gathering and KST's look-ahead schedules, we are still expecting that to complete prior to the March 31st original baseline date. Okay, we've got 3 aerial views here of the tunnel launch structure, so you can start to see it materialize as time goes on. The first one is from last November, where the sheet pile area was the most developed and the invert or the floor slab had started to be installed, progressing to the U-wall area. You can maybe start to see, you can see the Y panel, the outlines of the Y panels going in way over on the left-hand side for the cat shaft. And then in February, you can see that there's been some progress in the U-wall area going deeper, the cut and cover starting to be excavated, and then a different configuration of the cat shaft as things have progressed. The pre-installation of those walls has progressed. And then this last photo is from mid-March, and you can see continued progress. Now there's bracing in the cut and cover section. The cat shaft is starting to be excavated, or you can see more activity in the cat shaft area. There's some excavations. The guide walls are all in. The panels are starting to go in, and every other section has additional progress as well. Okay, Tom's going to talk to us for a moment about the schedule.
Okay, so we've talked a lot at this committee, at this board, and at the BSV2 Oversight Committee about the concept of what we call a critical path. And I want to just take a minute to give you a little bit of an explanation about what we mean by that, why it's important, and what the critical path is for this program. The critical path is the series of activities which, if they don't stay on schedule, the overall completion date of the project will be pushed out. And so if any critical path items are delayed, no matter what happens on other parts of the project, the end date, the revenue service date that we're all driving towards, will be will be delayed and pushed further out. This schedule illustrates, as you look from left to right, the left-hand side is today, the right-hand side is the very, very end of our program schedule. The red arrows that you see on each of those successive bars starting at the upper left-hand corner, that is what's called the critical path of the program. One of the features of the way we've set up the schedule and the way this program has been established is the critical path largely stays with the tunnel for the next 6 years. So all of our efforts, everything Sarah's been describing for the last few minutes, is about keeping the West Portal on time and on budget. If the West Portal stays on time and on budget, we have an opportunity to launch our tunnel boring machine in as early as 2028. If that tunnel boring machine and that tunnel construction, the next line stays on time, then we have the opportunity to finish up the interior build out and move down that dotted line in the year 2032. So after 2032, the concrete tunnel is there. It's all built. It's actually the heaviest spending period of the project. And then the critical path drops down all the way down to that yellow line for the track and systems. And for the duration of the program, until we start partnering with BART on the actual testing and commissioning of our systems, it's the construction of tracks and the installation of systems that is the critical path. An important thing to say here is what I haven't talked about. None of the station excavation, none of the work that's taking place on, let's say, the VTA block or the Tiradon block or the East Portal or Little Portugal or even the work that's happening adjacent to downtown streets is on our critical path. We've been very careful about designing the schedule in a way that the areas that are most under VTA's control to keep on schedule are what constitute the critical path. That said, there's another concept called the near critical path items, and those are items that, should they fall behind schedule, have the risk of becoming critical path themselves. And I think the one that's most important to point out is that bluish block that you see in the underground stations. This is in the years 2028 through 2030. It's labeled SOE, which stands for support of excavation. That is the underground concrete work that Sarah's described at the West Portal. That'll be taking place at all of our stations. And that's the support of excavation at the East Portal and 28th Street stations. So if that work doesn't get started on time and stay on schedule, it has the risk of pushing the schedule out. And that means that even if we keep the tunnel on schedule and even finish the tunnel ahead of schedule, and even if we keep the tracks on schedule, there's a risk that any near critical path items, which is what that dotted line indicates, could push the schedule out. Again, the overall approach here has been to use the tunnel as the critical path. It's the item that is most under our control. It's the most expensive part of this program. And we want to get it started as soon as possible so that we can move on to the next item and the next item and finish this program as soon as possible. We'll be doing an even deeper dive on this in the committee. We'll break down some of these individual boxes, talk about what each of these lines of scope are, what the risks and opportunities are to keep them on schedule, so that you have just a better sense of how we're approaching this on a scope item by scope item basis. But wanted to give this board that overall view and to remind you that more than anything, the West Portal and the tunnel is what will define our critical path for the next 6 years.
Awesome. So that leads right into another look at the activities that are needed to be completed prior to starting up that tunnel boring machine, with the goal of having that occur in 2028. This color-coded graphic indicates the different areas at the West Portal site where things will occupy them that are needed for tunneling. So they're color-coded by a blue outline and a bit of a gray background, which is the West Portal and the TBM launch structure, as well as the noise curtain. Then the next color I'd like to call your attention to is the green at the bottom, where there are 3 items, and these match our traffic light green items that we previously identified, at least to the committee, as far as being the most critical and the lowest risk to advance. This includes electrical equipment, energization, and installation, not in that order, long lead procurement, equipment for tunneling, and tunnel lining storage. So the precast concrete tunnel liner, we need extensive storage of that to have enough ready to install at the tunnel face once the machine starts turning. And the third color is red, and those are pending items, which are perhaps represent a slightly higher risk and or perhaps represent a slightly lower benefit slightly lower need urgency-wise in the schedule. And that is the prep, actual prep of the shaft and assembly of the TBM. Obviously, we don't need that until the TBM arrives. The factory itself to generate the segments, grout plants, and other materials for handling excavated materials, which is the overland conveyor system, gantry cranes, and the excavated materials bin. So the primary purpose for this slide is to indicate the green items whereby we are imminently activating some previous board authorizations to advance critical elements of these three items, as has been previously identified as urgent for the program and beneficial for the program with a very low risk. And that's the electrical equipment, long labeled item, which just means the power drop for the TBM, long lead equipment procurement for tunneling, and then the storage area. We have to design and install a significant storage area there. Onto some photos now from the West Portal site. You'll see in these some significant advancement over the last month. The left-hand photo is within the launch structure looking north. The short steel pieces coming out from the walls are called lookouts. A perpendicular piece called a whaler goes in there, and then the struts stretch across the excavation. The struts are actually stressed to actively push out on the walls. And actually they are stressed so much that they get a little shorter, and steel shims have to be put in there to make them fit. Many of these are instrumented, some of these are instrumented so that we can monitor the stress and make sure that it stays on for as long as it needs to during the excavation and bracing operation. The right side shows some concrete working slab grading work inside the excavation. In this photo, you can see multiple levels of bracing. As we go down, as we go deeper in the launch structure, there are additional levels of bracing required by the engineer of record. Okay, I think it's coming to, I'll hit the button again. There we go, awesome. The left photo here is taken from inside the launch structure, and there is rebar being installed and prep work for the concrete working slab to be installed. There is additional concrete slab that gets installed above that later on for revenue service, but there's a significant concrete slab installed for structural bracing and also just for working to make sure that it's nice and strong to withstand all of the heavy loading that it's going to be subjected to over the next few years. Then on the right side is our long reach excavator. It's really impressive as far as it has to stay a certain amount back from the edge of the excavation to keep the excavation stable, but it can really reach in there and pull material out quite efficiently. As the excavation gets deeper, different methods of muck removal will be employed. And then two more photos here. The left side shows a rebar cage, which is made up primarily of not steel, but GFRP, which is glass fiber reinforced polymer. On the side of the shaft where the TBM will be excavating and breaking out of the shaft, we were trying to be gentle with our TBM by not having it excavate through a bunch of steel, which will tear up the inside or be hard on the inside. And so we're using the GFRP, so it could be excavated through seamlessly. And then on the right, this photo is attempting to show a splicing operation where the TBM is going to excavate through that GFRP. GFRP is only being used in the horizon where the TBM is going to go through. And then below that, we're still using steel. So the GFRP cage has to be spliced in the air to the steel cage before it goes in to the panel. And now, oh, we have a video. Okay. So this is just from the shallow end of the ramp to the deep end of the ramp. You can see the bracing installed, you can see some of the concrete installed, and it just hopefully gives you a bit of an overall view of where our future passengers will be riding down toward a station. And at this end is where the cat shaft is and where the TBM will launch. That's where the most activity is right now because that's where we still have the most amount of work and the greatest depth. Now Erica will tell us about community outreach.
Thank you. We've had several successful recent tours in the last couple of weeks, most recently bringing the staff from Senator Alex Padilla and Representative Zoe Lofgren's staff to the site, in addition to welcoming members of the National Association of Women in Construction in honor of March's Women in Construction Month, as well as some additional tours Tom will talk about in a minute. In addition to preparing for the tour with the California Transportation Commission in May that Carolyn mentioned earlier. In addition, in March, we held our quarterly community working group meetings where we provided updates on the program, as well as construction and some updates on station design, as well as some additional topics of interest as we're starting to advance and demolition at some other properties near the East Portal and in preparation for some demolition at 28th Street. Shared information with the community members as well about what's happening in those areas. In addition to that, we continue our regular coordination with our city and agency partners as it relates to preparing for construction and the development of the Construction Transportation Management Plan, currently working on the Downtown and Diridon Plan, as well as anticipation of some soils testing we'll be doing. The image you see here on the right is part of our social media campaign highlighting women in construction. These 5 women are working on site supporting our project, and we highlighted each of them this month. In addition, our construction update was distributed and is attached to your packets as well.
Okay, and then finally moving on to some of our federal and funding activities. I won't repeat all the details that our general manager shared about this allocation of $100 million from the California Transportation Commission. I'm just going to say that we will be spending this money immediately. We have all the pre-tunneling activities that were in green on Sarah's slide are going to be paid for by this money, and so we want to really continue to give that message to funders that this is a project with momentum. We're moving quickly. We're trying to recover and gain time back. That's the whole point of talking about the critical path all the time. And we're very excited to have those commissioners on site later this spring to show them what the money they awarded is going to be used for. We also have had some great interactions with our PMOC, that's the Federal Transit Administration's Program Management Oversight contractor. That contractor was on site for a half-day visit a few weeks ago. You can see us all in that top picture. Region 9 staff, the regional administrator, Ray Tellis was there, and all of our PMOC staff. We did a half-day meeting, getting really deep into refreshing project risks, talking about project and controls and procedures, the kind of things that the PMOC is there to help us manage and to protect the federal interest in, and then took them out on site. And they hadn't taken a site tour since last August, so it was really interesting and exciting to be able to share with some fellow professionals who have been tracking this project on paper and on screens, but really give them a chance to get their feet dirty and see what they're helping build. We also had the acting FTA executive director and deputy administrator, Jamie Pfister, came through town, and Carolyn and I and Sarah were able to give her a very up close and personal tour. And again, she's the senior executive right now at the FTA, and really, again, want to make sure that she can see with her own eyes what the second biggest CIG program in the country looks like. Coming up, we'll be talking with the board committee in more detail about some of our cost reporting. We'll be giving an overview of more detail of the work Sarah described in terms of early tunneling packages, work we've already authorized and work we plan to authorize, and an update on our approach to funding and recent conversations with CTC, MTC, and other funders. We'll bring an update back to this board in May. And then at the May 14th Oversight Committee, we'll be presenting two significant options. We expect we'll be ready to make a recommendation about the award of our program management services contract. And we'll also be talking more with the board about, or the committee rather, about a question we've been asked several times by many of you, which is what options do we have to get the tunnel boring machine in the ground in 2028? So we'll be talking in a little more detail at that meeting. So that's what you can look forward to at future presentations. And that concludes our presentation, and we look forward to your questions.
Thanks so much, Tom. Any director comments or questions? Start with Director Jane and then Director Sell.
Yeah, if you go to slide 9, which is the schedule. So I see here you have tunnel construction starting at the beginning of 2028. Originally, it was the beginning of 2029. And if you had it start at the beginning of 2029, you wouldn't have made the 2038 RSD. Is that correct?
Well, so we're showing the schedule because what I'm trying to illustrate here is the logic of the critical path. There are many ways to organize the schedule in the years after the tunnel is complete, and we do have schedules that show us able to reach revenue service in 2037 with a later start date. But because I'm talking so much about getting the TBM in the ground by 2028, I wanted to show you this schedule because it illustrated the point the best.
Okay. In the Oversight Committee, we talk about being muck-bound, my favorite topic. And, you talked about having to create these spur tracks to either the salt ponds or to Lehigh. And those seem like they were in the critical path to be able to create those because you have to get all the approvals from UP. And I don't see that outlined here as a critical path item because that did seem to be a very critical path item to be able to remove the muck for you to be able to do the tunneling.
Yeah, it's a good observation. This is a very high-level schedule, so we haven't dug deep into all the parallel activities like the spurs. I will just say that there are a lot of things that can delay us, and a lot of those things have to do with the daily production or the daily pace of any of these activities. That tunnel construction it kind of rolls up muck removal and a bunch of other activities that need to stay on schedule for the tunnel to stay on schedule. So it's a good observation. This is a very high-level schedule, so I haven't broken the detail out, but it sits within the tunnel construction activity.
Okay, and my last question is, and I brought this up at the oversight, and it's in the minutes for the oversight, was, I'm very concerned about, we're building this $13 billion system, and what will be the operations costs. There's just the operations cost, but then the capital costs to maintain the systems. And I calculate that they're somewhere between $120 and $300 million a year just for capital maintenance costs. So I'd like to get some better understanding of those costs because we're running deficits,
Okay.
Thank you. Director Sell.
So on slide 9, we need the money from the federal money. So where does that wind up here? What if we don't get the money? What if we get the money late? How does that impact the schedule?
I think I had at the April 9th committee meeting, we're going to talk about what I labeled it funding update in my slide, but we want to talk to the board about some different options for advancing things like tunneling and other contracts with the vast majority, the vast array of non-federal funding sources we have, including some pretty significant state grants. We want to start to explore those options with you because right now, as I think Auke and Steve said, I think I'm paraphrasing them correctly. There's a concern that it might not that the FFGA will be a challenge before 2029. So we're going to look at ways to. I don't want to make any promises or suggest exactly which funding sources, but we're going to look at ways to bring other funding sources forward to fill that gap.
Okay. And then one last thing. So you have this critical path, and what do you do in general to stay on critical path? Do you have like, your management consultant and you meet with them like what is your strategy for staying on critical path target?
Well, so tunnel projects are often quite linear, and so you can see these critical paths don't have a lot of options, and so there's a lot of attention focused on underground projects in general to facilitating workarounds if something gets in the way, or making sure that something doesn't get in the way, right? And so that's kind of the primary thing, is that there's a different, you mentioned, specific talent. There is a different approach to these projects with these linear critical paths. There are things on schedules that you can do in parallel. This schedule, for example, shows things happening in parallel at the same time. We do have the benefit that our tunnel is large enough that it's possible we can conduct some activities inside of it while it is still being excavated. When you do that, you still have to make sure that there's adequate ventilation. There are Cal OSHA standards for that. You need to make sure there's a clear path so that the muck can come out. Those are all things that are factors when we are looking at contract packaging for who has control of what work area and what needs to happen in that work area. And those are all things that at a program level we're looking at as we plan what's in front of us.
But we also have a lot of data coming from Sarah's team and the Bechtel team. Maybe just talk about how much data you have to.
Yes, so yes, there are, every tunnel is somewhat unique, but there is a really good amount of case history data and industry data indicating what is achievable and what is practical in different types of tunneling and different types of ground in relevant, rather than saying different types, I'll revise that to say in relevant diameters of tunnel, similar types of ground and similar types of interior construction. And so we have got a number of those, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 projects at least that are relevant and have provided us with lessons learned that we do expect to implement during the construction of our project.
Okay, that sounds really good. So keep going. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Do we have other questions? And do we have anyone in the public who wishes to speak on this item?
Yes, Chair, we have 2 hands raised over Zoom. We'll begin with Roland, followed by Blair Beekman. Roland, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Thank you. So very briefly, comments on attachment A, Union Pacific, line 80, professional services, Ireland, close up to the critical path. The attachment says that this work on Union Pacific tracks is maintenance. Well, it's not. It's actually they're repairing the damage because of their tracks. And they're going to have to re-baseline their tracks not just once or twice, which is normal norm. They're going to have to re-baseline them 5 times. And if that is causing the 60-feet delay, I don't know. Line 80, supposedly $7.7 million for GEC. Where is the $12.5 million for PNT? And by the way, the PNT contract will end in May. And lastly, the critical path is Iridan. It's not New Orleans. And the sooner we realize that and we start pivoting to the east side, the sooner we're going to be able to get to barriers instead of getting stuck halfway there.
Blair Beekman, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thank you for this item. Thank you for the presentation. You tried to make something clear about the process of the timeline. It was nice to hear. Real good luck in working towards May 2027 West Portal needs and things that goal can be accomplished. Goals can be accomplished by May 2027. In previous, presentations on these sort of items, there's been a lot of dodginess about how to talk about timelines and scheduling. And it sounds like you are making an effort to be more clear, and that is really commendable. And it takes a lot of practice and nerve to want to try to offer clear timelines. Good luck in that skill that we practice it as a community towards openness and accountability and trust. And good luck in how to talk about these sort of issues. Thank you.
And there are no more hands raised.
Thank you. Any last comments? Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Sorry, sure. I do want to address something that's come up in a few public comments recently about the Union Pacific and the I think the comment about baselining the tracks. The contract we have to build the West Portal involves procedures that we agreed to cooperatively with Union Pacific, which owns the tracks that are just next to where we're building the West Portal. There was an agreement between VTA and Union Pacific that we would monitor those tracks very carefully. We have some instruments that have extremely small, tight tolerances that are telling us exactly what the height of those tracks are every day. And then if those tracks were to drop by as little as a half an inch, that we have set aside money in the contract to actually go and reinstall the ballast to make sure the Union Pacific tracks are where they need to be. The good news is that we had planned for up to 5 reballastings as part of the contract. We've only had to execute one so far, and that's a great sign in terms of our project not disturbing the ground of our neighbors more than we expected. In fact, it's happening less than we expected. But I want to be really transparent with folks that that work is planned, it's agreed to with Union Pacific, it's happening in a way that we expected, and we are doing our part as a good neighbor to meet our obligations to keep their tracks in good working order.
Thank you. And Tom and team, I just want to thank you for this report. In particular, I know there was really an effort to make much more clear what the critical path is, and that was in response to, in particular, questions from the committee and from board members. So I think going forward, that's really going to help with the clarity, and I know we'll continue to get more specific on that, but that was really refreshing to see that update.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That wraps us up for this item, which is also an information item. And that brings us to 9.1, items of concern and referral to administration. We have a referral available on the agenda portal and at the public table that requests a policy to restrict the use of VTA-owned and controlled property for immigration enforcement activity. A printed copy is also in your supplemental packet. And I will see if any board members wish to speak with this, and I'll start with Supervisor Arenas.
Thank you so much, Chair. I appreciate that. I just want to first just start off by thanking the folks who signed on, my colleagues who signed on to this memo, starting with, of course, our Chair Lopez, and Director Candelas, Kamei, Sell, and Weinberg. And I think we all understand how important it is to stand in solidarity, but also to make stand in solidarity with our immigrant community at large, but also to make it very clear what we are willing to allow or not allow on our county or VTA. Sorry, I'm in the chambers for the county, and so I'm defaulting just to county. But on our VTA property. And so I think this makes, this referral allows for that level of clarity. Also, it creates a culture for our community to understand that we take our role very seriously in terms of how we are going to either accept or not accept ICE-free zones. There's a lot of cities who have done this. So we've followed in suit of the city of Chicago and the city of San Jose and the county of Santa Clara did this last year around October, in which we took identical memos and moved them forward in our respective municipalities. And this is something I'm really proud of. Because it really draws the line for those ICE agents that we haven't seen in a mass deportation strategy efforts here, but we have seen the destruction that they have impacted and created in our community so far, and then of course across the nation. And so this is not only in solidarity to the rest of the folks in our nation, but to set the values and set what our properties are allowed and not allowed to do. we have also seen that municipalities or transit agencies like LA Metro and Long Beach Transit have adopted similar policies. So I think it's time for us to do that, and we've received a lot of support from our community, also leadership from our Assemblymember Ash Kalra, IPEN, Surge, and just others who working partnerships in Siren, who've just been really adamant and creating their own leadership in this area. And so I believe there's some folks here who are going to speak. I know it's at the end of the day. I think you took some comments at the beginning.
We took a comment earlier.
Okay,
We're actually
so
not able to take
any
further
more
public- yeah.
comments. I see a Kemi from IPEN in the back of the room, and I just want to thank you for staying this long to listen to this referral. I know your heart is with our community, and your leadership shows the kind of model that we want to emulate across the nation and across our county. And so thank you so much for your service, Kemi. Really, I think that I've said everything I need to say about this referral. I just wanted to highlight my gratitude for everybody that's involved, and thank our internal counsel, and of course, Carolyn, for your leadership in working through some of the concerns that this referral might have, just some reflections or questions that you had about this referral, and I appreciate you working through this with me and with our group. And I think we are at a place where I think it's ready to go, and hopefully my colleagues believe the same. So I hope to get the support of everybody on our board. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other directors who wish to make a comment? Director Kamei, and then Director Candelas.
Oh, I'm sorry, and then I'll make the motion to move the referral.
I don't
I don't think we do that.
We don't
I
have
don't
to-
believe we need a motion.
Oh, we don't
on this.
need a motion for
Yeah, we mentioned this earlier, and
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Kemi and others, thank you for speaking. So just to clarify, and for any members of the public who may be listening or tuned in, we're not able to take public comment at this time. We took all the public comment that
Yes.
we had at the beginning. There's also no action required because this is governed by our referral policy, which states that I think it's 3 or more board members, then that moves forward and staff will bring it back. So it is moving forward. There's no further action required, but thank you.
Thank you.
So Director Kamei and then Director Candelas, I believe.
Thank you. I just want to thank my colleague, Director Arenas, for her leadership on this. And, this is so critically important for our community. And, in order to keep them safe and feeling like we're welcoming in our facilities, I'm really proud that we will be moving forward with this. I would just suggest that anything that we could do sooner rather than later, because I know that some of the items may take a little bit longer, but I think that if we're able to go ahead and establish this sooner, it would be much better for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Sell and then Candelas.
Yeah, I also wanted to thank the leadership of Director Arenas to start the process and invite many of us to join. So really great. Thank you for thinking of the community. I ride the bus a lot, and I see all the people riding on it, and this brings some security, some comfort to both the riders and the staff. So I just think this is a really good referral. Thank you so much for everyone involved in it, and staff for being supportive of trying to work up the detailed policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Candelas.
No, I just wanted to express my appreciation for Director and County Supervisor Sylvia Arenas for her leadership on this referral, as well as to the rest of my colleagues for their support. San Jose is 40% immigrants, and so this is a clear indicator for our immigrant community that's, quite frankly, in chaos. There's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of hesitancy. And as a son of immigrants, my mom ran to this country, And so this is a clear referral that is going to hopefully empower and let folks know that we're listening and that we're responding to the moment, especially with the World Cup approaching. I think it's important for us to create these protocols and policies and not just protect our employees but our riders. And I will just uplift that, you know, as we go through the process, I hope our administration engages with our workforce and ATU, AFSCME, SEIU 521, and IFPTE as we embark on this because of their important role that they play in our transit system. And you know, ultimately, no one should feel unsafe, either using the bus or the light rail. And I think this is a right and just policy. And I just wanted to express my appreciation to my colleagues and the administration for this.
Thank you. Other comments? Finally, I just also want to say thank you, Director Arenas, for your steadfast leadership on this, and also for the collaboration with staff to make sure that incorporated the work that, frankly, Kayla and others have already been leading, but absolutely in line with our values. I also just want to share, this is personal for me. My parents were immigrants to this country, both of them formerly undocumented. And we relied on VTA to get around and be connected to our community growing up. And I just think that if, rather than being welcomed in that way, we had been looking over our shoulders out of fear, I may not be here today. But the fact that I am and that we are in these roles means that we can play a small part in moving this forward, small but significant. And what I've heard overwhelmingly is not just from our community, but from workers, that there's not only a desire, but a need for this for our community to feel safe and welcome. So it's going to go forward with a collaborative approach, and I look forward to more discussion when that happens. Thank you all. So with that, are there any other referrals from colleagues? Are there any 9.2? Do we have any announcements? Okay, and then because we took public comment, we're adjourned. Thank you all. Appreciate it.